Before I start the show, the Boardroom's The Future of Snowboarding demo is back. Come and ride 2025-26 product, including wired snowboards and fixed bindings, before it's released in stores. This weekend, March 22nd and 23rd at Cypress Mountain, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's free to demo product, but a valid Cypress Mountain lift ticket is required. FNRad is presented by Flojoy water, which is purified by granite rocks. Flojoy, a true gift of nature, and Chris Roach. And Essential Toothpaste Tablets, travel-ready, eco-friendly toothpaste your taste buds will enjoy. Wired Snowboards factory in Vancouver builds high-quality custom snowboards for about the same price as other brands' regular boards. I've created several one-of-a-kind wired customs, including a Chase 162 that's seen hundreds of my best powder days. Get yourself a game-changing snowboard and join the Wired team with Devin Walsh, Sasha Daly, and many others. Wired Snowboards. For more information, go to wiredsnowboards.com. Fixed bindings are FNRad. The comfort, performance, and quality of fixed bindings stokes me out every time I snowboard. Their commitment to making bindings that work amazingly and give you no issues puts Fix ahead of other binding brands. It's just that simple. Buy fixed bindings at an authorized dealer or go to fixbindingco.com. Bluebird Coffee Tuning and Rentals in Squamish is the coolest new stop on your way to Whistler. Bluebird offers quality board tunes using state-of-the-art equipment, premium rentals for every level of rider with demos of Burton step-ons, and award-winning coffee and incredible smoothies. For a blend of expert knowledge, convenience, and lots of charm, stop by Bluebird in Squamish and get your board tuned at the newest mandatory stop on your way to Whistler. Pro Standard makes the grill mount the best mount for your Insta360 GoPro or DJI camera. It's a heat-moldable mouth mount, tripod, hand grip, hook mount, bottle mount, wall mount, clamp mount, glove mount, and shoe mount, designed by snowboard legend Ken Ochenbach to get you the perfect angle for snowboarding, surfing, biking, and it'll replace 90% of your other mounts. Use code FNRAD to get 20 off your first order at prostandard.com. Anon snow goggles enhance and protect your vision with unmatched optical clarity. Anon's Magnatech quick lens change technology allows you to swap lenses with ease. All Anon goggles are engineered to deliver no fog days and pair perfectly with Anon helmets and MFI magnetic face masks. Get yourself the best goggles at an authorized Anon dealer near you. Support also comes from our friends at the Boardroom Snowboard Shop. Check out boardroomshop.com and use code FNRAD10 for 10% off regular priced items and FNRAD5 for 5% off sale items. 1910, the collaborative artworks of Jamie Lynn and Scof. FNRAD20 saves you 20% off at 1910.com. New Greens, the superfood green drink sourced from American farms. Use code FNRAD for 20% off at newgreens.com. I want to thank DeKind Snowboard outerwear, travel bags, and backpacks, Rip Curl's Anti-Series outerwear, and our friends at Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, and Cypress Mountain for their support. Phil Tifo moved to Whistler for the love of snowboarding and chose to become a professional photographer in order to stay there. His career shooting snowboarding spanned more than 20 years, and he shot with many of the world's best snowboarders without ever going on a rail trip. His photographs are unique and encompass his deep love for the environment and the mountains. Stoked to have him on the show. Here's Phil Tifo.
Since I'm teaching, and I teach like 3-hour-long courses, like I have to always be self-aware of what it is that I'm talking about and how am I going to explain something, and being aware of what it is I'm talking about now, but thinking about what's the next sentence I'm going to be talking about so that everything I talk about makes sense. Because with photography and videography, like I'll talk about like a technical aspect, but then it starts to, here's somebody asks a question and then I have to bring up an example, and then all of a sudden I feel myself drifting because I'd realize at first like how far I would drift from the subject. I'm like, keep it straight, dude. And then like, yeah, all of a sudden like thinking, okay, I'm talking about this, but how am I going to tie this in? Because that we're totally drifted. So like your mouth is speaking, but your brain's thinking about the next thing. And I've never really had to do that before, but it made me a lot more self-aware of how I talk and just to be like mindful of, yeah. So whatever it is that I say makes sense and is coherent somehow, you know?
Did they teach you in teachers college or teaching school about speaking? Like, are there a lot of courses on that?
I haven't been to, I haven't done any schooling for teaching.
Killer.
Yeah. No, it's just like I got offered the job and I just started teaching. It's a friend of mine who called me, like he used to be one of my climbing partners, and he called me about like, hey man, I got this friend who's opening up a school in Whistler, and I know you're my photographer friend. Would you be interested in doing photography courses? And yeah, but like maybe I'll even explain that if you talk about like it is I'm doing in the podcast. But yeah, so yeah. So I ended up doing that. I've been doing that for like 9 years now, or something like that.
9 years.
Yeah.
So what age of people are you teaching?
I am teaching, like I just finished a course right now, and I had an 18-year-old all the way to a dude that was 52.
Yeah.
Who's trying to like learn new skills for whatever it is that he's going to do with his actual like job right now. And he works with like Whistler Adaptive and stuff like that. So he wants to be able to film some stuff for what he does for work. And, as he said, to like be able to go film his kids and take photos of them when they shred so he can have something to connect with, because now they're like 18 or 19. So he's trying to find ways like, how can I reconnect with my kids? And it's like, oh, photography and videography is great. Like I can go take photos of them and like, look at what we've done together.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had Owen out snowboarding yet?
Oh yeah. A whole bunch.
Did you like take tons of photos and shit?
Well, not really, because I'm holding him the whole time. I mean, like
it's too much.
It's
right?
too much.
Yeah,
well, because there's two ways I bring him snowboarding. Either that, like this afternoon, we're going to take in a magic chair,
sick,
and I ride with him in front of me, kind of thing. Like we're parallel, and I hold his armpits, and I just
totally
make him ride around. Or like I take him to like next to the complex here. There's like the most perfect little hill. It's like the perfect drop in ramp, and I can build him a little jump when it snows.
Here, pull that up.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm getting pretty close to where I'm going to get new swing arms.
Oh yeah,
These ones are like the basic ones, you know.
No, you can. Like, that's the thing with like the same thing with tripods. It's like they'll just lose a little bit of their friction, and
that's
all
it.
of a sudden you just get that little loose in there, and it's
that one is so loose. When I set it up, I hate it, but it's like. It is what it is.
At least the camera is there and it's static. And
It's not hard. It's not hard when it's that. Yeah, I guess if you're moving, if you're panning, your tripod's got to be like so perfect.
Well, there's a certain minimum. Like it's like, and even like I deal with that with my students all the time, explaining them like because they really want to get into it, and they're like, oh, I want to buy a camera, and like I got to tell them like at first, like in the first class where I tell them about camera movements, and I'm like, okay, like you either have your camera handheld, which is like either you have like your own two hands holding it, where you're gonna have like a certain amount of shake unless you feel really smooth, or otherwise like if you shoot with any type of long lens, you're gonna need to have your camera on a tripod. And we always go on our first field day, and then they're always like, that's too much work to bring out a tripod, I don't want to do this. And then I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, film everything handheld, we'll see how it goes. Or try to film with like, they'll be like, here's my $40 janky tripod that I bought. And I'm like,
the worst.
I'm like, I'm always telling them, I'm like, just you douse this thing with gas and you light it on fire. And then you're just going to realize how much you're just wasting your time using those things. So anyways, it's the same thing with like any tripod. If you got to do any movement, like there's a certain minimum that you got to get. But like I'll go on I have computers connected to projector, and I'll go on the internet and show them like about like what you should get for the minimum. And they're Whistler kids like barely getting by, and I'm like, oh, so this tripod, the minimum thing that you should get is about like $500 and this and that. They're just like,
they're not cheap.
They're not cheap. So
none of that shit is cheap. I went on Craigslist. I found this one on Craigslist by accident.
That's Manfrotto at least.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. And so then that one is nice the same.
Yeah,
but it's got a different head on it.
Well, they're just like they're both ball head tripods because they have the ball head socket. So
this little one is just easier to adjust. I find the big thing with them is this adjustment that holds them, on this axis.
Yeah.
Like you tighten that, but then it can unloosen just because it's threaded on. You know what I mean?
Well, because what happens often is that people will tighten this, and then even if it's tight, you start to move it, and then often they'll just like unscrew the actual head.
That's what on both of these it does that.
It's funny because like
that should be locked. Isn't there like a lock for this?
Well,
Probably is.
Not really, because like you just gotta. It's one of those things you just gotta use your fucking tripod properly and know like if you're gonna move the head, loosen the friction, and then you can rotate it, because otherwise like I get it all the time. Again with my students, they'll be like, "Why is my tripod head so shaky?" And I see the thing is all like wobbly and shit, and I'm like, "Oh, well, here, you have to undo this knob, because what you're doing now is I finish unscrewing the head and I pop it off," and they're like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Oh, you can take that off. I'm like, yeah, you just see this big screw. Like in the end, like it helps that I do that, because they're like, oh, like, yeah, you can put some Loctite or just like unscrew the knob and then you can just rotate
every
your
time.
tripod.
Right. It's just so loose. It's
I always
so
say
close.
like if you have to force something, you're about to break it. So like it should be able to loosen something without being like unless you're trying to like take off your wheel off your car or something like that, and you're just yanking on the bolts. But
I'm one of those unfortunate people that I don't take care of things, right? Like there are
shit
certain
falls
people
apart
that take care of their things,
mm-hmm.
and I think that happens in childhood. Like I think it's like an innate ability that people have. Like I've seen it with my kids. Like my daughter takes care of all her things.
She sees dad that just wrecks all this stuff, and he's just like, I don't want to be like that. I want to take care of my son.
He doesn't. So it's like I don't know. I
That's
think
why girls and women live longer.
But there are some people that really. I mean, you can see from my my clamshell case that I keep all my stuff in. Like I made my own foam there out of an old 4-inch foam mattress, right? And it's janky and it sucks. And you know what's bad about that foam is in the cold, it gets hard. So then the shit doesn't fit back in because it's not flexible. I didn't find that out until I was in the Baker parking lot trying to put this
thinking
stuff
about
away.
when you record those.
I'm going like, what the fuck, dude? Like this doesn't even work. I'm like, like, so again, not taking care of my equipment. I've got the camera. I don't even have a lens cap on. I'm like pushing it in, It's like people that for a profession are photographers, filmographers, they take care of their stuff.
Well,
Like,
it's like
you have to.
you have to, otherwise do you really want to smash your lens and buy another one? Like no. And that's like, say for my phone, I don't even have a case on my phone.
No case.
I
love that.
And people are like, don't you drop your phone? I'm like, no, I'm a photographer and I film stuff. Like I take care of my equipment, like whatever. That's like, I'm kind of cheap. I don't like to buy things when a second time. Like it's like I'll spend money on something the first time, but like if I break something, I have to replace it. I'm like, oh God, really? Now I have to spend money on that again?
Yeah.
So like if I'm paying for this like stupid phone that costs over $1,000, like I'm gonna be careful to it. People are like, what about your kid? I'm like, well, my kid just doesn't hold my phone for now until maybe he's gonna be older. But like, then again, like. Yeah, I just try to take care of everything because
that's really, it's funny that you try to take care of everything, but you don't have a case on your phone, which is like kind of the shortcut to taking care of the phone. But
but then it's too big in my pocket. And already I'm like, dude, I feel like I have like half an iPad in my pocket already. So it's like, it just fits nicely. As soon as I had cases before, but then I was like, oh, it's too heavy and whatever. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, you don't drop your camera. Just don't drop your phone. It's like, I see it as another piece of electronic that's just as worthy as anything else that I own. So
that's it.
Yeah. I'm just like, don't drop the thing and like be mindful to it. And
I said to the Genius, I'm like, so it doesn't come with a case? And they're like, no. I'm like, it's expensive, right? This is a $2,000 thing so if it doesn't come with a case, but it needs it, it comes with a charger, right? And the guy's like, yeah, of course it comes with a charger. I'm like, but so it doesn't come with a case, but it needs it? I don't think.
Same with the screen protector.
Yeah. I've never used screen protector.
No.
I hate them. I just hate the feel of them.
Well, you look too like somebody has his like full of bubbles in it from the side. You're
Totally,
like, that looks ugly. It's like, no.
But yeah, so like for me, until I dropped it one time, I didn't have a case for my phone.
Yeah.
And then once I dropped it once, I was like, okay, I'm going to get a case. Because I can't take care of my shit. That's cool. So you were saying there's a perfect hill not too far from here, you can build a little takeoff, build a little jump at the bottom. And
Yeah. It's
aim him at it.
Yeah, it's too perfect because like as soon as I knew that we're gonna have a kid, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to teach that kid how to snowboard. I saw like that little hill, and I was like, that thing's got potential, and I couldn't wait to build him little jumps. And like when he was like 10 months, I bought him like the Burton bar. Well, his grandparents did because my dad really wanted to get him like on snow and all that because he taught me how to ski and all that stuff. So they sponsored his snowboard, and I had like the bar that he can hold on to it. So he wasn't even walking. He was just holding on to that thing. So I was making him slide. So I was like using that, but I was like, one day you're going to be big enough that I'm going to like let you go. I'll build you a run in and a little jump. And then we just had a little bit of snow for the first time this winter in Squamish. And, there's a bunch of little kids that live in the complex here, and we had them all out there. And like, we had a first session where like the bigger kids built like they had a drop-in ramp with the picnic table onto a rail. So they're having like a best time jibbing. Already. And like we show up, and then I'm like, Owen loves to shovel. Like as soon as there's snow outside, like he wants to grab my little backcountry shovel and he starts shoveling everywhere. And I'm like, let's use this. And like, Owen, let's go build you a jump. And he's like, and he always loves big jumps. Like he's very into big jumps. He thinks he is, at least. Anyway, so I'm like, oh, let's go build you a jump. So I built him a little kicker, and he was dropping in, rolling over it, and
perfect,
riding out. And then, but he was kind of intimidated because there's a lot of kids that were there that day. And then I went another afternoon, like literally the last day before everything melted. Like it rained that night, and then everything was gone the next day. And I just scraped everything that was left and made him like an actual run in and a nice little kicker. It was slushy, and that was the first time that he went down the little hill and he actually aired off. He was airing and like stomping and stopping.
At 3 years old.
Yeah.
At 3 years old.
Yeah.
I love that.
Like just a little air, just like this
I know.
high, but like,
I know. I did it with my kids too, to both of them. I got to the point where my daughter she must have been about 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
And like we had a trampoline. Yeah. And we had a tramp board. So I was like, grab the board. And then we were on snow. I'm like, all right, grab the board.
There you go.
Side air.
Yeah.
And she did it. And I'm like dadding, trying to get the photo, right? I think I got a couple photos of the kids doing that. And then as the jump got to the next size, right? Like, hey, do you think I could do the jumps in the park? Like, yeah, you can do the tiny little guys. Mm-hmm. When we got to the medium size one, it was like, Dad, I'm scared.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be like, yeah, so face your fear and go and do it. All I could think of was like telling her to go, and then she breaks her arm, and then she's like,
as you're saying that, that's what I imagine, it's like, no, I'm like, look at me. I'm so happy that my kid's doing this little jump. And like, yeah, fast forward that like a few years when he's going to want to like start chucking tricks off jumps and like be like, okay. Like, I hope that injuries are it's going to happen. Right, but like every parent hates to see their kid being hurt. But then, that situation where you're like, oh yeah, Dad, I'm scared. And like, you're just like, okay, like, what's good parenting here? Is it like pushing him to do whatever this is stopping him or holding him back from doing that? Or are you just like, well, if you don't feel it that today, like do it the next day when you really feel it.
Because why are you here? Are you here at the top of a jump because I put you there? Or are you there because you're excited?
Yeah. Essentially, it's the culmination of everything we've done until now.
If you're looking down at the jump and you're like, I can't do this, well, I'm not going to tell you can, because you need to know inside that you can do it before you do it.
Yeah, you got to be prepared for it. It's like if you're starting like doing a big climb or something like that. If you feel underwhelmed or going out paddling in big surf that you shouldn't be out there, and it's the same thing. Like, should I really be hitting this big kicker right now? But it's like, I feel like it's a big connection with the ocean because like. Yeah, like I learned how to surf with my father-in-law because my wife's from California.
Oh, cool.
And her and her dad taught me how to surf. But then like he would, like, as soon as I could catch waves, he would take me to his beach break that is kind of a little bit out of town, but it's like it gets big and heavy pretty quick.
Yep.
And then he would put me out there. He's like, "Come on, kid, paddle out with me." And then I just paddle out. I'd be like out there like, "Fuck, I shouldn't be here." And like. It's the same thing with like all of a sudden you're in front of a big jump. And it's like you gotta ask yourself like, how did I end up here in the first place?
How did I get here?
Yeah.
You reminded me I was at Sunset Beach on Oahu in Hawaii, And I saw these kids just having so much fun on their body boards right on the beach break there.
Yeah.
Heavy beach break. And I could tell, like, from the sound and from watching the kids, like, they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the lifeguard and said, am I cool to just, like, paddle out, maybe, like, body surf right there? And the lifeguard goes, the fact that you just asked me that, I can't allow you to swim.
Yeah. Especially
like,
there.
if you don't know what you're looking at, and you're asking me, like, oh, hey, am I good to go here? Like,
That's like biggest red flag ever.
Big
Because
red
if you
flag.
can't make that decision yourself, you really probably shouldn't be out there at all.
I can't let you go.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He's like, I can't even allow you to swim here.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Sorry.
because they've seen too many people drowning it, like,
Yeah.
especially there. Like, I've never even been to Hawaii, but, like, I can only imagine with the size of surf that's there, like, the rip currents that are out there and
Totally.
whatever else. And, you know, with big enough beach, like a shore pound, like, if you're at the wrong place, if it's like a 4 or 5 foot shore pound that hits right on the sand, like, you could, and you get smashed head first, like, you could break your neck easily.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
people do.
Yeah,
Danny
yeah.
Way did. Like, lots of people. get
short
really
pound,
badly
short
hurt.
pound's dangerous, man.
Hell yeah. So how much do you surf? You surf a few times a year? You do a surf trip a year
I
kind of
mean,
thing?
like, well, it's been, you know, allocation of spending's been a little bit different in the last couple of years since, you
Yeah.
know, child. But we try to go see Martin. He's got his house in Tofino, so try to go see him a couple times a year. We got a vacation plan in June. I mean, I used to go way more with Lamru and DCP, and well, you know, they have teenage kids, so they have more time, you know. But I did like a lot of trips where you go like sleep on the beach in Sombrio, or go even for a strike mission and go to, you know, different waves out there, and just especially in the winter, like when you know that is going to be good, like, oh, like that's the window and we can go, the wind's going to be good. Okay, cool, let's go out. But ferry's gone up, and it's kind of becoming an expensive mission.
Yeah.
So I haven't been as much in the last couple of years, but like in the past, I used to try to go as much as possible. And we used to go like a lot more in the States, where we go visit Chelsea's family, and that would be like our surf vacation. And like,
Yeah,
where-
what part of California is
she's
she
from Ventura, like more inland. It's called a town called Ojai. But Ventura is like 25 minutes south of Santa Barbara, north of Malibu.
Yeah.
So yeah, super good location.
It's a nice spot.
Yeah, it's a nice spot, and for me, it was really like, it was a really nice place because like you could surf when the waves are good, and when the waves are good, there's actually quite a spots that light up. It's not the best. My timing wasn't ever good because after I met my wife, how we made our relationship work is strictly because I was a photographer and I was living like super cheap. I was renting like a 3-bedroom house with 2 friends in Valley Cliff here in Squamish for maybe $1,000. So like my rent was $300 and the bills were super cheap, and I was selling like enough photos and, you know, making enough of a living for that I could take off for the summer and fall and just stay down there. So
Amazing.
I spent a lot of time down there, and we had a sailboat at one point too that we bought, like, so that was like our home in California. So
Like you lived on a sailboat in California?
Yeah, in California.
Like, did you have a marina slip, or was it? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it was in a marina with liveaboard. So like every second slip was a liveaboard.
Amazing.
And so we bought this like super sweet refurbished 1969 Cal 34, like beautiful boat, like and it had just been redone, and like, because we're either looking at like, do we buy a cheap one and, you know, work on it, or spend the same amount of cash in the end? Anyway, so we stumbled upon that boat, and the Seabird. It was a beautiful boat. So we bought it in Marina del Rey, and my dad flew down at that point to take the boat back to Ventura. It takes a day and a half to get back from LA to Ventura on via sea, because you're going against the wind and against the current, so it takes a little bit of time. And
does he know how to sail, or was it something that he just
well,
powered through?
Well, also my father-in-law was with us too, and he knows how to sail. He knows, he's been sailing on the Santa Barbara Channel for, you know, most of his life, so he knows all the anchor points, and he knows like you come back from Catalina, you cross there, you anchor there, and then the next day you go there. So he knew all the logistics on what to do, all that. But my dad and I guess my brother was the first one to sail. He was working in summer camps, and he taught us how to sail. My dad always wanted to have a sailboat, so he bought our first little sailboat when I was like 10 years old or something like that. Wow. And like we barely knew how to sail anyone, and we kind of like all kind of we looked like a freaking corkscrew lost at sea kind of thing. It was probably pretty ugly.
It is insane. Like there were these catamarans in Cabo or somewhere one time with the hotel I stayed at. You could go out and you'd had to pay for
you
the
can
guy
rent
to
them.
come.
Yeah.
Or you could use them for free. And I'm like, how hard can it be? The guy that we'd have to pay is like 12 years old. I can do this. And it was horrifying.
Oh, yeah. Because all of a sudden the sales pick you up. And
Yeah. How do you go back?
Well, it's like, and the thing is, like, what ended up getting us to learn how to sail is that I started taking sailing lessons so I could teach. Like, my first job was being a sailing instructor when I was like 14 or something like that.
Right on.
So I took some sailing lessons and I learned how to sail. Like, it wasn't that you know it. Like, I could literally teach you how to sail in like 10 minutes. Just like the understanding, if the wind comes from this way, you open your sails a certain amount, just whatever, how the dynamics of sails work.
Mm-hmm.
But so when I started taking sailing lessons and courses to be able to teach, that's when we're able to like sail properly. And my dad, the first boat really sucked and he sold it. And then we bought like this, his second boat was a little 23 footer called the Eclipse.
So not like a laser.
No.
Like
a proper
boats.
like little boat, you know? And then, so we sailed that one. It was, on the Ottawa River, cause I'm from Gatineau near Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
So we had, well, in French it's called the Lac des Chênes, but in English they call it the Ottawa River, and like they call it differently. They want to be special.
Lac des Chênes.
Lac des Chênes. Kind of like Guy des Chênes.
Like Guy.
Yeah. And so I sailed there for a bunch of years and then my dad got a better boat, and then eventually like I spent all my summers on the sailboat just teaching sailing and
that's fucking
sailing.
So cool.
And we found like a little laser that somebody was selling on the side of the, like, for a pretty good price. My parents bought me a little laser, so I started racing too. So I did a bunch of sailing racing. So like my dad knew how to sail in the end, like, so, and he, like when you sail as a lake sailor, you always think like, especially in Quebec, like the terrain, you have the same terrain as like BC or California in a sense, but just everything is smaller. Yeah. Unless like you go for ocean wise, like if you go like to like Quebec City and like to like the eastern Quebec where you're on the open ocean, okay, that's something else. But like for us lake sailors, like sailing on the ocean, I was like, that's the big thing.
That's
so
the goal. That's like going to Alaska.
Exactly. It's like or
badass.
Being from Quebec and being like, I'm going to move out west and go ride those big mountains kind of thing. So it's like, you see it in the magazines and all that, but it seems like so crazy to you. Yeah. So my dad, like when I had my first boat and it was our first voyage, like he really wanted to come out. So, and it was cool because we slept at anchor for the night, and it's a little place called Paradise Cove. So yeah, we had a really cool trip back. But
how long did you guys live on the sailboat for?
We had it for 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
And so you'd come back here for the winters, work, and then spend.
And Chelsea would come up, like, as she's a nurse, so she would take her vacation in the winter mostly. So she'd be able to come up for the winters.
How did you guys meet?
I was on a climbing trip in 2006 because I rock climb a bunch, mostly bouldering, and I was with 4 buddies that we're just traveling different destination. We just spent some time in Lake Tahoe and climbing with the hatchets. Actually,
I was gonna say because he writes those bouldering guides, right?
Yeah. So he showed us a bunch of
Dave's a bouldering. He's the dude.
No, him and Mike, like both the brothers, like they really love climbing. It's cool too because at the time, like, climbing really wasn't like a big thing in snowboarding. Like people were like, "How the fuck do you do that sport? Shouldn't you skate?" I'm like,
"Right,
I'm too broken and I suck at skating, so like I want to do something I'm kind of good at." But anyway, so I always loved climbing. But like, so anyways, I was on a 6-week long road trip with my friends down in California and Utah, and visited a bunch of places before that. But then we're in this place called Bishop, just south of Mammoth. And it's like a perfect spot to be in October. It's like one of the central places to climb because climbers are looking for better temperatures to be able to climb in. So when the weather's shit here, then you could just like hit the road and drive 20 hours to California, and then you can climb in perfect weather. And she was my campground neighbor. I had the lifted Jeep. And I thought that I was like, damn, this chick's cute, man. Just see him from a distance. And then we went climbing the next day to somewhere around Bishop, a place called Owens River Gorge.
And your kid's named Owen.
Yeah, because we met, the whole area is called the Owens Valley.
Oh, that's so sick.
We're looking for, for girls, we're trying to look at all these names. And then when we knew that he's going to be a boy, I was just like, how about we name him Owen after the place that we met? And that's how it ended up being. But
dude, that's so cool. So your dad gets you interested in the outdoors pretty early. It sounds like you learned to ski when you were a kid. In the summers, you guys are doing sailing and outdoor stuff. Like,
yeah. I started skiing when I was like 6. He took me out in the Gatineau area hills at Edelweiss.
Yeah.
And I started like, I still remember my first day skiing with him. And I remember like asking him to go skiing because like, I think I asked him like, at the time, like I still remember we're shoveling the driveway and I'm asking my dad like, hey dad, can we go play hockey? Can I start playing hockey? Because everybody played hockey in my town. And he's like, well, let's put it this way, kid. If you're going to play hockey, we're going to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and we're going to go play inside. Or if you want, we're going to go skiing and then we can wake up a little bit later and then we're going to go play in the snow and play outside all day. How's that? I'm like,
sick.
Yeah, fuck hockey. We're going skiing. And then he took me that day. Like we rented me, I think, a little pair of skis or something like that and went to Edelweiss and had my first, like, he would take me not even on the lifts. Like it was like a tiny little hill kind of thing. Like, and he would just like show me how to snowplow. And then until I was ready, he'd be like, okay, we're going on the big chairlift. And up we went. And then we took him. Yeah, he took me up quite a bit and those are like, my favorite memories with him was just when, and my mom too, because like we all go at least like most of the time it was like 1 week a year where we go to Mont Saint Anne or Mont Tremblant.
Yeah,
because like our hills are so small so for us like those hills were like the Whistler of Quebec in a sense.
Yeah.
So you go there and be like, wow, this is a big resort, and like it was so fun. Like especially at Saint Anne, like we just ski like all day and ski all night during night skiing, and like I pretty much live in my long johns and just.
It's pretty special, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I still have vivid memories of us like skiing and turning around and seeing my dad coming down and be like, this is so much fun. And then just like lapping like hours on end and
lapping with your family. That's badass.
Yeah,
That's dope.
Oh, it's the best. And so, yeah, like he had an interest in sailing. So, he got me out and I was like on the water and I learned how to do it. So between that and everything else that comes with it, like like mountain biking and stuff, but like, biking at the time wasn't even like mountain biking. We just had like, I had like a little Peugeot bike that we take on ATV trails and try to hit like big mud puddles. And that was like biking for us. But like we always played outside, like no matter what. Like,
isn't it so wild how everything's changed in our lifetime, right? Like snowboarding in our lifetime when we were kids was like snurfing, right? Like was like a rope on the nose. Like
pretty much.
I'm not saying it was the 60s or something, but like I was a kid in the 70s. I was 6 or 7 when it was 7 when it, turned 1980, right? And I wasn't exposed to it, but if I would have been, it would have been snurfing, right? Like there wasn't any snowboarding.
We couldn't see it anywhere. And I remember like for me, like the first time I started to see like extreme sports, quote unquote, was this TV show called High Five.
Oh, I remember.
Like the hand would flip. High five.
Yeah, somebody had it recorded on a VHS. Like I would go to my like high school friends' houses. They're like,
and watch it.
I've got a tape of snowboarding, right? Like just randomly came on. So you don't get the first part. You just get like snowboarding's on, and then the tape goes in. Somebody records it. I saw the High Five snowboarding thing. Yeah,
I think like. I don't even remember if I see, but like I remember that's where I saw surfing for the first time.
Surfing, right?
And I think like the first time that I really saw snowboarding was with in a ski movie with there were the rap films because I was at the time I was skiing.
It's my favorite one too.
And I was
Into the Snow Zone.
Into the Snow Zone, and there's
Alex Warburton, Don Schwartz,
John Boyer, exactly.
And
I still remember.
You're like, God damn, I want to be like that.
Dude, that's exactly it. Because I remember seeing that. Because skiing, especially at the time with your feet, and you look like a noodle,
They're totally.
And then like also this movie comes on, and I was really into watching Trevor Peterson and Eric Peyoda and Kirk Jansen and seeing like their first descents and like to me, like, that's always what I was attracted to. I was a tiny little kid. I was like, fuck, one day, like, that's what I want to do.
Not the ski ballet.
No, I want to ride mountains like that one day.
Yeah.
And then, but then, like, that section came on, and like I started seeing what it was, like, the way it was. The narrator goes like, and John Boyer snowboarding, and then you see him, he looks all like Dayglow and all this shit. I was like, I've never seen that before. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And then freerider Alex Warburton. I was like, whoa, man, these guys are legends. And like by the time I wasn't like legends, but now I'm like, man, these guys are such legends. But like that's when I saw snowboarding for the first time. And it's funny because I went on a trip to Revelstoke with DCP and Emmanuel Krebs and Warbs actually in December. Like David invited us for a little bonus day at Eagle Pass, and I was sitting with Warbs on the way up, and we're talking about the beginning of snowboarding for us, and like I was kind of thinking back. I think like you're the first fucking guy that I ever saw snowboarding, and here I am like 40 years later or whatever. Like
it's
maybe like 30 something, but like yeah, because I must have been 12 and I'm 46, so yeah. 20 something years ago.
30 something.
Yeah, 30s, yeah.
35 years ago.
35 years ago, and yeah, it was kind of a trip to be able to go snowboarding with him. But I snowboarded with him before, and I shot with Alex for Yes while he was designing boards.
Of course.
So I always enjoy like spending time with him. He's a super cool dude, but
he
like
still looks the same too. His face
dude,
is still the same.
That guy doesn't age one bit.
It's crazy.
Oh,
yeah. When I think about,
and he still shreds. Like
I went up to him in Whistler before the show. Before I worked at the shop. I was just like a shop guy. I'm in Whistler, and I'm like, that's fucking Alex Warburton. And I ran up, and I was like, Alex. And he turned like, hey, buddy, like, because he's like a nice guy. Like, obviously, I'm like, I'm just a fan. I need to tell you.
I need to shake your hand.
You're the very first dude that I saw snowboarding in Into the Snow Zone, and you're like one of my favorites ever to do it. Your career on Morrow, and
like you knew everything about it. Yeah.
Or at least his
snowboard career,
snowboard like media publications kind of stuff, which I've heard from Kearns that Warburton is one of those guys that was so much better in person than what got published of him. That like, sometimes you're shooting with somebody and they just don't make it that day, right? Like that day isn't their day. They're a little bit hurt or whatever. And throughout his career, he just didn't get in Kern's opinion, he didn't get the representation in print and in
of
movies,
how good his writing was.
And when you think about Into the Snow Zone and what they were doing at that time, like how big they were blasting those cliffs that were just so fucking huge. For then they were bigger than any of the skiing things that were going on.
Oh, they were. And like, they're just like, it's not like they had something to prove, but they're just like, yeah, like watch us like skiers. We're going to do something rad here.
Yeah.
And he still shreds like, riding in Revy, like he was on the resort, like he was like jumping off little cliffs and stuff like that. And like looking like shredding really powerful and like nice and low and really limber. And both him and Krebs, like they were just like, man, you guys still got it. It was Krebs' first day too. Like he hadn't ridden yet that year. And
oh, wow.
So he just like straight up, like both those dudes were just like crushing it.
That's another crazy legend, Emmanuel Krebs, and his story with starting a skate shop in Quebec City, at his mom's house or whatever.
He's done so much. Like
and building the first skate park.
He did.
He built the first indoor skate park. I think the story as I tell it, and he would obviously know better, but I believe he started getting skateboard stuff because there wasn't a skateboard shop. And so he's selling
you want
it
to be able
friends.
to provide it. Yeah.
And then
somebody's got to take charge. And he's kind of one of those guys.
And he's in like grade 10 or something, like 15, 16 years old. And his mom goes, okay, well, you got 10 grand in the bank from your business. And he's like, what? Like he had no idea that there was money accruing in a bank account.
Yeah,
right?
but his parents were smart.
She's like, hey, you hit the $10,000 mark. And he had been petitioning the city to build a skate park. And then he's like, what does $10,000 worth of wood look like? Right? Like, could we?
Yeah.
And so he bought 10 grand worth of wood and he went on a trip or something. When he came back, his buddy had built like all these ramps in this spot
that's so sick.
found.
Like how selfless to just be like, here's the money I made. I'm going to give it back to the community so we can all have a skate park. Like how cool is that? Like
100%.
It's one of those guys that's always been like, kind of like Galen. They're just like, they're such like godfathers by nature. Yeah. Just like this thing's bigger than me. Like I gotta include everybody. Like how he, like, yeah, I think he, like DCP would know that more because I'm 819 in the Gatineau region. They're the 418. 418. But like, I'm pretty sure like, did Emmanuel like start 418? Like
absolutely.
Yeah, he's the one.
From what I understand. Yeah.
So like that whole and help bring so many other young riders like DCP and Dave Aubry and Mignot and like everybody else from that generation that just like it all blew up because the 418 was like an identity.
Yeah.
Especially for French Canadians out here is like, it's always so hard to get recognition in some way or another. So it's like, and then you had like guys like DCP that were like, he's just like uber talented and just his talent shown, his personality, and he just got to the right places, and he was in all the big movies with him and everybody else that had a lot of talent that were out there. I feel like the 418 was really something that helped like put all these names on the map. Like look, who are we? Here we are.
Yeah.
And I remember, now that we're talking about that, I just remember about having a bunch of photos in an issue in Snowboard Canada when it was about the 418.
Sick.
And yeah, Gaetan Chanu was in there too. And like it was a big story about like French Canadians and how like we kind of pioneered our way, and how, you know, this history of French Canadians that come out west, from starting with like Marc Marcet and Galin and Belsha and those guys, that they were the first ones to have the vision to come out here and do it. And then after that, like it pretty much like showed everybody else like, oh, if you guys can do it, like we can do it too. Although like I didn't know of barely of any of those guys when I first moved here.
Wow. Yeah.
I just want to like get the fuck out of the small mountains, and I want to keep riding. And like in the summer, you could ride the half pipe still, and there's a public pipe back in the day. That was in like 97 or something like that.
Yep.
So I came out here, and I kind of knew of them because of magazines and stuff like that, but like I didn't know that much about any of them. But I remember like the first time I ever came to Whistler was summer 97 to come and ride the half pipe, and there's still snow on Jersey and all that. So, and solar coasters, so you could still do runs because it's like early May.
Yep.
And somebody brought me to a jump, and like, oh, these dudes are hitting the kicker, we should go check it out. And it was DCP that was sessioning. It's like something right off like on the way solar coaster now. Like now they have like this magic castle there where there's like this big dip where you could like build a kicker, and like DCP was sessioning that. So I met DCP there. He was the first person that I kind of met back in the day.
No
at the
way.
time, yeah. And then we go on the glacier, and then I'd see everybody like ripping in the pipe. And
97, he's on Burton, like he's the man.
He's on Burton, he's the man. And then so is like, you know, there's everybody else like who I can't remember from that. Like all that 418 pipe guys were there, and I'm trying to think like who else was there, but it's kind of a blur because it's been so long and who was there at the time. I just remember people ripping and that hit the wind lip.
So right before that, so I moved here in 93. Summer of 94, I had a summer pass. It was $99.
I'm gonna try this Flojoy water.
Yeah, crack it. So I had a pass in 94. That's water from Donner Summit. I love saying that. It's like
a little
Chris
California.
Roach.
It tastes like California.
It tastes like
bit.
California.
Yeah.
I love it. 94, I had a summer pass. 95, I had a summer pass. 96, I had a summer pass. And I think by 97, in 96, it went from, you'd go up there and you would just ride like you would anywhere. Like it wasn't crowded.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to, you stop at the top of a jump, you look, you wait until you're feeling it. I think what you're going to do, and then drop in when you're feeling it, you know, wait for your friend. Hey, let's go. I'm ready to go. By 96 or 97, it was a lineup, a giant group of people with a lineup where when you got to the front, you had to go.
Mm-hmm.
And there was someone on the in run. You went when they got to the jump, and you hoped that they landed. And there was someone coming right behind you.
Yeah.
And that big group of people, you could hear French guys coming like, attention or something, you know, like yelling like, I'm dropping. And they would go around the line to keep the speed, and they would just come in. So now there's a guy almost on the jump, and then there's you, and then there's a French guy that's
just trying to pass everybody.
That's going to pass you, but like they didn't crash. That was the thing. It was just obvious.
These guys were on point.
They were on point.
They were on point.
Like, they were so good. And I remember I've never skied in my life, but I did watch skiing as a kid, and the Quebec Air Force dominated freestyle skiing.
I forget what their name, but yeah, these guys were superstars.
I don't know who the individuals were, but they called them the Quebec Air Force. And every year that there was Olympics, they were cleaning
crush
up.
everything. Yeah.
And so I just thought, of course, this is the Quebec Air Force of snowboarding.
It's pretty much what it was,
right?
Yeah, because they're the first generation of French Canadians who came out as like a little crew, and like
God,
I think it's like
good.
They're super good, and like always like on point because like half pipes in Quebec are like freaking solid. You know, we've all
Ice.
heard about how like
Yeah.
people from out east. It could be like anybody that rides like Vermont or Maine. Anybody that rides in that part of the country that rides on really hard pack. Like you learn to land because
You have to.
you have to.
It's concussion otherwise.
Yeah.
It's break your knee or hit
Or
your
you're
head.
going to
Right.
the hospital if you're not landing. So yeah, these guys are so good and on point and like trying to like really break the barrier of like going bigger and like trying new tricks and stuff like that. And that's kind of like what made me end up like shooting photos in the first place. Because
So in 97, when you come out, are you like a shop sponsored guy and like a,
fuck no, oh no, I was just a kid wanted to snowboard.
you're an enthusiast?
I was an enthusiast snowboarder. Like I barely I knew about Whistler because when I was maybe like 10 or 12, my dad used to be really involved in the tourism industry in the region I grew up. He was like the president of the tourism association and stuff like
cool.
that. So, but he was doing it like it was all. It was doing it because he would get to travel. It was kind of volunteer time to do all that.
Yeah.
But anyways, he was at a golf tournament, like an industry golf tournament where they just invite everybody to play golf and whatever. At the end of the tournament, there's draw prizes where one of the main prizes was a week in Whistler. And he was like, I never win any of those things. And like, he was on his way out and you hear like, oh, and for the week in Whistler, Jean Tifo. And he's just like, huh? Turns around. So he won a week in Whistler. So when I was like, since I was 12 and under, I could come for free. And the airfare was next to nothing. So for a week, we stayed at Chateau Whistler at the base of the hill. And
What an experience.
It was the best. Like playing in the like outdoor pool. And one night it snowed and we were having like snowball fights in the pool. And it was all so surreal. And like, yeah, like, and the first time that we went up on the lift, we take the first one at the time. There's Wizard, and then there's like, okay, we're not going to just take the first one. We're going to take the second one. We're going to take Solar Coaster, go up, and then we're like, okay, well, these mountains are massive, so like let's go see what's a green for them. And we took the expressway that would lead us to Seventh Heaven. So at that point, it's like a dead end. Like there's not really anywhere to go. So we're just like, oh, this other chair, and then okay. And so we take Seventh Heaven and we go up. And at one point, like, you've been up there. So like when you go up 7th, at one point you turn around and just have like such an epic view of the valley. It's freaking breathtaking, and it's still to this day to me, like it's one of the most beautiful places in my mind. And, yeah, that was like, I remember like looking back and being like, tap my dad's shoulder, Dad, look back. And his face was like, oh, holy shit, this place is sick. And it's just, so we had like the best week ever. So I always knew about Whistler. So like when I was like running up skiing, and now all of a sudden I'd look at like Ski Magazine and all this stuff, and I see like a double spread page of the Whistler Blackcomb ads that they had.
Yeah.
From the air with Horseman Hut and the peaks and
They
everything.
were
I was
so
like,
good at that.
oh yeah, it's just like
it was the holy grail. It
was.
won like resort of the year every year, all the time.
Well, no matter what, it's still always going to be one of the biggest resorts in North America. People bitch about it, but like I went riding yesterday with DCP and Spencer, and we had like the funnest time. You're just like, it's so goddamn fun. Anyway, so I'd always look at the magazines and be like, one day I'm gonna move to the big mountains. And
so you moved out as an enthusiast. Had you done like any contests or anything like that?
No. I started riding pipe. Like we had one of the first half pipes in Quebec at Tremblant, and I just love riding pipe. And I was a decent snowboarder, but like people were so much better than me. I knew I was never going to be like able to get good. And I started hurting myself pretty early on. Like I broke my wrist when I was like 17, and then on my first year here, the first year I moved here, I dislocated my shoulder on my first powder day following Chenu that I just met off a cliff.
Oh,
and I
wow.
landed and powdered my arm open and fully ripped my arm out of socket.
Oh, dude.
So, and I kept dislocating it. Like I probably dislocated it like 40 times or something like that over the course of the next few years.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that year, I broke my femur in the bowl in Whistler. Little kid cut me off in the bowl while we were doing speed runs.
How do you break a femur with that?
I was skating. Like, have you ever done the speed line in the Whistler Bowl? Like, anyways, like you start at kind of at the top of the bowl and you go straight and you drop through the canyon. And then you go over the hump and then you drop in the bowl.
Yeah.
So we call that the speed line. So like we'd follow each other. Like we'd be 4 or 5 at a train and going as fast as we could, like running and getting on, skating the bowl.
Yeah.
And I dropped in behind someone, and then a little kid dropped in from Slayer on the other side and went right in front of me. And I was like, just first reaction, I jumped over the canyon, the dip, and I landed on the other side. And something felt really weird, and I landed on my back, and my foot was by my head.
Oh God!
So I was just like, oh no, I wrecked my knee. Coming back from this is gonna be so hard. And then that's the first thing I thought, like, how am I going to be snowboarding with the knee so destroyed? And I put my foot down, and then it bent like at my leg. Ugh. And it bent like right in the middle. I was like, oh no, dude, you broke your femur. You better sit back. And then I was just like, oh fuck, dude. So yeah, I broke my.
That's a gross one. I broke my femur, and
oh no way, we're femur brothers.
Yeah, I was in the water, and I had some hip issues where I thought I dislocated my hip, like, because it looked like my leg was out of place.
It was so bent out of shape,
but it's really, really disorienting. Yeah. And then like I just couldn't look anymore.
I know. I was just like, I'm not gonna look at this thing. And yeah, ambulance came in because like people said they heard a crack, like a branch broke like from across the way. And everybody was like, what was that?
It's actually not that crazy of an injury compared, like you were saying, like if you did your knee
in a sense, like when I realized, like in the shock of everything, I remember thinking that, oh, you just broke a bone, you're gonna come back from that. Because at first, that's why when I saw my knee, because I've heard of people like wrecking their knees, like,
and then they're done,
and then it's just such an issue forever. And then I was just like, I was kind of relieved. I was like, oh, they'll fix that, I'll be back. And then maybe like 2 months later after that, like that's the first year that maybe first or second year maybe that they're letting bikes on the hill in the summer. So I as soon as I was able to, I must have looked like a fucking idiot, but like I was taking the bus with my bike and my crutches, and I get to the base of the hill and I put my crutches on the side of the building and I just like push myself on my bike, and I was able to do laps because they're just single tracks. Yeah. But yeah, I just had like freshly broken femurs. That was like my physio.
Yeah, I think I broke it.
The best choices.
I think I broke it in July, and I think that I snowboarded in October at Mount Baker.
Oh yeah, I believe it, because I rode for opening day right after that season. It was like feeling a little weak and stuff, but
it was a little weak. Yeah, a little weird.
And I still get like some pain. Like if I don't snowboard a bunch, or I started noticing it when my older dog, before Sunny, like I had another dog, and when she got older and I couldn't take her hiking anymore, like my leg would start to like. I would climb and whatever, but like I didn't work like the glute muscles that I'd need to keep strong in order to keep that whole apparatus feeling strong. And
do you have the pin?
Yeah, I have the pin through.
It's still in.
Yeah, it's still in.
I
2
had to
screws.
take mine out.
Oh yeah, because mine, like they're saying it looks good and it stays.
Yeah, my doctor, when he saw the X-ray, went, "Oh,
take that out."
I must have done that on a Sunday or something.
Oh yeah.
He was like that. It's sticking way out.
Oh shit! Really? Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. No, I haven't had too much issues. I just get like this weird pain in my hip, and then I have to do like I'll be walking sometimes, like walking the dog, and then it starts to hurt in there, and I'm like, oh, it's fucking uncomfortable, and I do like donkey kicks with my leg to really activate my
kind of clicks or something.
Yeah, it kind of clicks a little bit, and then it's like, okay, I can keep moving. But when I don't snowboard, like that's when I start to feel it. And then I start riding again. It's like, then it's my back leg. So
up.
It gets stronger too. So it's like, I feel like my leg gets stronger, and it's capable of keeping everything tight and straight. But like, if I don't exercise enough, then it starts to hurt my hip a little bit.
But I kind of gave up on my pro aspirations when I broke my leg. Like it was kind of an excuse in my brain that I went like, all right, well now I can't do it for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it was someone like Mark McMorris or something, like, he had some crash where he broke both femurs and like,
well, when he smashed into a tree, that guy,
he was like just destroyed, and he came back and won like a few months later. It felt
at least like,
I'm like,
I'm not on his feet, but like, he's like the king. So it's like for him to land a trick, like it's not like he has to relearn it. He has to get the guts to do it again.
Right.
As opposed to like when I was young, I was like, I'm not going to start learning tricks, especially with a dislocated shoulder and that fucking femur. All of a sudden I'm like, okay, you're broken at 20 years old, dude.
Yeah, dude.
But then that was my first year in Whistler. Cause I came for summer in 97. And then went back. I was studying tourism in Montreal and living downtown, like on the Plateau Royal. And
cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was entertaining and stuff. Like we used to go for Fun Electric and watch like, punk shows and metal shows and stuff like that. Like that was fun, but like I hated the city. Like I lived on the corner of my apartment building. It was a corner unit. And I remember I'd go and sit on the window, and I still remember the vision of like, you know, they have like a tree, like the little square on the sidewalk where they have like trees every few, a few meters and stuff, and looking at that tree and be like, I know how you feel. I was like, you're out of place. Don't you want to be out in the woods? I want to be out in the woods. So like after that, after I spent a summer in Whistler, and I was like, oh dude, all you got to do is get a job and a place to live, because we're from Canada, so you don't need a visa. All you got to do is just like pack your shit and go, and then you get a job, place to live. That's it. You're there. You're doing it. So then when I realized that, because I got a job at in the summer, my first summer at Hard Rock Cafe. And I was working like being a busboy there or something like that. And then I was like, oh yeah, I found a place to live. If I wanted to, I could just stay here, but I had this schooling I had to do. So anyways, like I came here for 3 months and went back to Montreal, and then I was teaching snowboarding at Mont Tremblant back in the day.
Sick.
So that was my, like every weekend I'd go to the mountains with my friends, and we had a little place at Chalet des Chutes, which was like the dingiest fucking hotel like ever, man. It was so ghetto, but it was dirt cheap. So like 4 of us snowboard instructors were renting the place, and we're just like, yeah, whenever that you want to, any of us like want to come, like week or weekends, like the place is ours. So that was like our place at the hill. So that I was trying to live like the Whistler life in Quebec kind of thing. And then the more I went through the year, the more I was just like, fuck this, I'm so not into it. Plus like I was studying tourism, and I thought that I was like, oh, that's a job that's going to get me to travel and whatnot. But like all they were teaching us really was just to be a travel agent and stuff like that. And I was just like, no, I'm not, I want to travel. I'm not going to be the person like filling paperwork so people travel. Like, no, wrong end of the spectrum here. Yeah. So like I really started to lose interest, and by the end, I would only come back on Friday afternoon for the philosophy class, because the teacher was so good and like so enlightening that I was just like, I'm going to come back to do my laundry in the morning, go to philosophy class, and then I'm going straight back to Tremblant. And then after that year, I was just like, I failed all my courses because I didn't attend enough. Yep. And I just went to my parents like, look, like I can't do this anymore. Like I need a year off. Like I need to find myself a little bit. But right now, like, you know, I was a kid, they're paying for my schooling. So I'm like, I don't want to waste your money right now. This is not going to go anywhere for me. I need to go back out west. I'm going to spend 1 year, mom and dad, 1 year, and I'll come back and finish what I got to do. And, you know, I'll come back refreshed. And then, I went for then my first winter was 98, 99. And that was the all time year. And I showed up that year. I don't think
it'll be repeated in our lifetime.
Every fall, dude, I still, please bring back in 98, 99. I have like all these hopes. And then this year again, it just doesn't fucking snow. And I'm like, can we just get a good, consistent season? But anyways, that was the first season I came here. So like, and I remember like riding I had my 56 Jim Rippey with a chick on the moon. Yeah. And like, I was like, I've never ridden powder like that before. And I was like falling over and like, but like having the best time. I was like, this is what I always dreamed of. And then it kept snowing like all year. Like when the cycle really started to hit, when it went mental in January to March, it snowed like 1.50 meters every week. And I would just hike up like this spot called International Trees, where it's like 3 cliffs in a row. They're kind of flat, but you just huck yourself into bottomless powder. It was the best. And then I come back and I don't remember much from that year, but I just remember hiking the boot pack to International Trees, and my tracks would be covered every time I do a lap. And then I was living with Dave Kenny at the time in Gondola Village at the base of Creekside. And we just like chuck our shit down the 3rd floor and jump on the snowbank at the bottom because there's so much snow every day. That's kind of all I remember because it's so long ago, but it ruined me, because then I was like, okay, I remember going back in May after that season, and everything was wrapped up, and being also blown away that the season was good till May.
So good.
So long, you know, because in
that
Quebec,
year we rode, Grouse had a big air contest for Canada Day.
No
Grouse.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And there was still like, you probably could have run a chairlift. You definitely could have run like the little, like the, you know, their little learning area. You would have been fine.
Yeah.
But you probably could have run a chairlift. Probably peak chair would have been able to run in July.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, they have so much snow. Like, I also remember having gondola, the Creekside gondola wouldn't open until 10 because they had to dig like over the knuckle and Lower Insanity. They had to dig that.
It was going through
that and Harmony Chair. When you go up the first knuckle, like when you go up and there's like that first hump there, like the snow was like at the height of the towers. It was fucking crazy. It was just so much snow. Anyway, so like when I went back to Montreal, like to Gatineau to go see my parents and kind of reset and be like, hey, what are you going to do with your life now? And I drove to Montreal to go see like the school counselor and see like where I was at. And in my mind, I thought, oh, I failed my last year. I'm just going to take another year and I'll be done. But then they're like, no, these courses are not offered you're going to have to take a year and a half to do all this. And I remember like I was in the office and I'd be like, it's going to take me a year and a half before I go back out west. And I was like heartbroken. I was driving through Montreal, like kind of feeling sick to my stomach, thinking I'm going to have to live in this shit. And some people like it, but just to me, like,
my daughter went there for a semester.
Yeah. I call Montreal Concrete Island because there's nothing but concrete. And I just felt so out of place. I just didn't want to be there anymore. And so I remember driving back to Gatineau and like kind of like on the verge of tears the whole time just because I was crying because I
didn't like it. Yeah.
I was just like, I can't live this anymore. And like I got in my parents' driveway and like my mom saw me in the front windows and she's like, I knew there's something wrong just by seeing your look. And then I walked in the door. I told him what's going on. And like, yeah, no, I don't think I can come back and do this anymore. So, I want to live out west. This is where I want to be. I'm sorry, parents. And I feel bad because I'm like, I have my brother and sister, not long story short, not too much communication. So like, I'm my mom's only son, you know? So like, yeah, because my half brother and half sister was first married with my dad.
Got it.
Now my parents had me, so I'm my mom's only son. I'm only 19. I'm like, I'm moving across the country for good.
Yeah,
and she was heartbroken. Like,
of course,
you know, but it made my parents come out here more. And like after I moved out, like my dad was so psyched to come on ski vacations and ski in Whistler. And my mom didn't ski, but she loved like walking in the village and you know
it's
making
a beautiful
food.
place.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. They always loved it. So
it's a vacation. Like when you're living in Whistler. Because when I'm living in Vancouver, I'm like, when I would say I'm going home, I meant there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't been home in 20 years.
Uh-huh.
Like it just felt like I was on vacation. It still somewhat feels like.
It still feels like it because like, oh yeah, like Chelsea and I, like even before we had Owen, like if we didn't go travel somewhere, we'd be like, let's go spend a couple days in Whistler and be a tourist and be on vacation, like
so
half an hour
rad.
up the road.
Exactly.
It totally feels like you're on vacation too. You're like a little this snow globe, you know, Disneyland of fun times. And so, yeah, anyway, so I ended up like talking to my parents, like, okay, like this, I can't go back there. I don't really want to do that. But my parents were like, there's no way you're going to be a dropout and not finish college. Like you got to do something. Even if like you work for yourself, whatever, like my parents had an interior design business and my dad was an interior designer. My mom was taking care of the admin and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah. It was really cool little shot. They had something really good going on for, you know, most of my dad's career that he was doing that. And, yeah, so they're like, hey, what, aside from snowboarding, what is it that you like doing? I was like, well, actually really like to take photos of snowboarders because when I went on my year trip, my parents bought me this little Minolta camera. Cool. Like, oh, go take some photos and a bunch of rolls of film and like take some photos on
like
your trip.
A point and shoot or like
like a changeable lens,
yeah.
like a little Minolta and interchangeable lens. I didn't know how to use it in a manual at the time. I just shooting everything in automatic.
Yeah. But
then I had like my friends that were like launching off like Marc-Andre Tard and like Miguel Massé, like he's doing like crazy tricks and then DCP and Aubrey and everybody else that I'd see in the magazines, they were all ripping and I'd see other photographers that were there and I'd see their photos in magazines. I was like, in my mind, I was just trying to find a way to live in the mountains and convince my parents that I could move back out west. And I was like, well, I'd love to study photography, if anything. So I learned to be a good photographer and can go shoot photos. And that way I know I'm not good enough and too broken to be a pro snowboarder, but I could be with those guys and girls and be out in the mountains as much as possible and document snowboarding through the time that, you know, at the time I'm thinking I'm going to be doing this forever and ever. But like for the, now I'm like for the era that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But like, so I ended up, we looked at a college on internet, like we look at different places and like, you know, like Ambly Carr and like some of those, like they're, you know, years of study or whatever, and really, really expensive. And we found this little place. It was called Empro Photo Workshops. It was on Fraser, somewhere like Fraser and something like on the east of downtown, downtown kind of thing.
Sweet.
In Vancouver.
Yeah.
I forget what it was, like the main artery. Anyways, a little school, and it was super small. It was like 6 students, and everything was in the school. And I went to go visit it. Like, it had the dark room downstairs and a little studio on the main floor and computer lab upstairs. I was like,
So
in 5, 6
cool.
students, and it was 10 months intensive. You only study photography, and then after that, you study commercial photography. Then you're out. So we went to check it out. My parents came for a trip. Went to visit the school, and I was like, yeah, this is the shit. And then I found a place a little apartment to rent nearby. And
So you lived on Fraser, like...
I lived on
Kingsway or something?
Canby and 16th.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's where I live
right there,
now.
right next to Flying Wedge Pizza.
Yep.
Yeah. It was really good.
Yeah.
I lived off that place. But yeah, so I went there for a year, and like I had all my stuff on a friend's couch. All my shred stuff was at a friend's house, and
Up in Whistler?
yeah, up in Whistler. And I'd do my schooling during the week and hitchhike every Friday, take the 251 to Horseshoe Bay.
Yeah, I remember you would hitchhike. Nobody hitchhikes anymore.
Nobody hitchhikes anymore, but
we
I
used to hitchhike all the time.
all the time. And yeah, I was doing that like every weekend. I'd go to Horseshoe Bay
That's amazing.
and hitchhike to the hill and go shoot photos.
Sometimes you'd only get a halfway ride to here.
Yeah.
Like I remember hitchhiking at
yeah.
the Big Orange Bridge. And the guy that picked me up, there was 2 of us. We got a double ride to the Big Orange Bridge. And then we each got, I can only take one. It was like a pickup or something. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm in that. And then when we got to Whistler and regrouped, my buddy was like, oh, that guy was so mad that I didn't have any weed. He's like, I wouldn't have picked you up if I knew
like,
you didn't have a joint or something.
Yeah.
What a cool experience to hitchhike, though. Hey?
Oh, that was like, to me, kind of like it's part of the story that I don't know, not to show my commitment, but like how I really want to do it. And plus like after 5 days in the city, like, get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like I need to get out back in the mountains. But
yeah, so you could take a city bus to Horseshoe Bay, just get out there, and pretty quick.
Oh yeah, I'd get a ride, and I'd be first thing I knew, I'd be back in Whistler, and I'd go shoot during the weekends, and then come back and hitchhike back to Vancouver.
What was your first published photo? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it was from one of those sessions where I went on Blackcomb Glacier, where if you go hike towards the Spearhead or towards past the Windlip and stuff, and I built a jump with Craig Ballantyne, Jesse Fox, and Chris Wilson.
Cool.
And Dion was helping out Chris Wilson at the time, and I get this phone call from Dion, and I'm like, so? And he's like, Chris Wilson's going to be getting a checkout in Transworld. So we need to get, he told me that you shot photos of Chris. Can we come by your house and check them out? Because it's on slides, and I don't even have a scanner yet. So he comes and check out the photo, and he's like, oh yeah, this photo's pretty good. Okay, cool. I'm going to take it with me, and I'm going to send it to Transworld and see if that works out.
What company? Sapient?
Oh, fuck, I don't know. I don't remember at all who he's writing on.
Gabriel Morrow stuff.
Yeah. Like I absolutely did not remember what Chris was.
But they picked one of
they picked my photo, so
it's in Transworld.
My
it's
first,
not even a fucking Concrete Powder or Snowboard Canada. Like first,
I had like a first. It was a half page because it was a horizontal with an interview at the bottom. But yeah, it was like my photo, and I still remember the photo. Like it was like a nice little cheese wedge kicker, and he was in the air, like in the thirds kind of thing. And he was like a photo filter. I was like, fucking hell. I was like, this is sick. So my efforts were starting to pay off already.
Yeah.
And then maybe like a month or so after that, I opened a Snowboard Canada magazine, and I've been trying to get into Snowboard Canada and
like submitting like slide sheets or something.
Yeah. Well, it kind of started like at the time I was taking a lot of photos in the park, like we did when you start. And at the time, like there's so few photographers that I remember Colin Adair roll by, and he's like, oh, you're a photographer. Oh, hi, I'm Colin Adair. I'm photo editor of Snowboard Canada magazine. He shook his hand. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then like, you should come to my house and show me your photos.
Wow.
That was the first year I was shooting photos. And then,
are you still in school while you're doing that?
I'm not even in school yet.
Not even
That's
in
the
school
year
yet.
before. That's the year before.
So when you go to school,
I learned composition.
You're already like doing the thing.
Yeah. I was taking photos already, but like kind of sucking because I went to Colin's house and he looked at my photos and be like, cool. Those are nice. Go keep practicing and come back next year when your stuff keeps getting better. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't get butthurt because I knew I was just really learning and doing it half for fun.
Yeah.
And then that second year, like I was taking photos in the pipe, and there's a photo of a friend of mine. Like he's not even sponsored, Yves Martineau. He would just boost, and he did like this sick air to fakie. And I opened like a couple months later, after that Transworld photo, I opened Snowboard Canada, and I had my first full page of Tino that was like air to fakie and the pipe, and I was just like, no fucking way, this is so sick. And then like after that, I was like, okay, this is game on. Like I got 2 photos in the mags, and it's just a few $100, but in my mind, I was like, here's my stepping stone to getting into it.
Still, a few $100 feels like a lot.
Well, it's when you first get paid from your camera.
Yeah.
And I see that with my students, that they're like, when they take my course, and then the first thing that happens when they get a photo. And I remember one of my students came to, because I play in a band, and I invited her to, she's kind of punk rock a little bit, and I was like, oh, if you want to come take photos of one of her gigs, you should come and check it out. And she took photos of one of the other bands, and they paid her for the photos. So
that's awesome.
She's like, I called my parents there in Sweden, and she's like, I called my parents right away. I got the first money from my photos. And it was the same thing for me. Like, as a teacher now, like, I'm so happy when I get to see that for them.
Totally.
But like, to me, it was just like, yeah, I'm getting my first dollars off my camera.
Yeah.
And okay, now let's go full in. And the next year I bought a sled. Well, my parents helped me buy a sled. So it was a bit of cash from working, but like, you could, that's at the time where you could still shred and shoot on the hill. Yeah. But it was getting a little bit more limited.
But if
Daniel had paved the way and shot everything on there. And he was like one of my heroes, like, and I'd see him like go shoot like all these heli places and then backcountry. Because like in the end, what really made me want to be a photographer is when I saw an article in Snowboarder Mag about the making of Second Wind from Treetop Films.
Oh, cool.
And there's this photo of, I think it's Brad McGregor actually that shot it at the time. No, because it was Brad McGregor and I think Dave B in the photo. I'm bad to remember who's in what, but like Curtis Croy has shot the photo from higher up, and there's Mount Fee and like beautiful blue light kind of thing, and the two sledders that are rolling up to it, like, it's so staged, but like so perfect and like line up. I was like, and when I opened that, I was like, that's what I want to do until I can't do it anymore.
Sick.
And Curtis Crow was like one of my greatest influence for that, because he was out with these guys, and like I was into freestyle and stuff like that, like, because I like riding pipe and stuff like that, but I've never been a trick guy. Like, to me, like, it comes back to like watching movies with Trevor Peterson, where like I love the big mountains, I love free riding and POW and like seeing people ride lines. And when I see the riding and the films and Treetop Films, I'm like, dude, what these guys are doing, going out with snowmobiles in the middle of nowhere to get these shots and document these pillow lines and these cool like powder booters and stuff like that. Like, that's what I want to do. And so got my first sled, was a 98 670 136 track. Like, fuck, the worst sleds ever.
So I don't know everything about sleds, but that sounds like a very, very short track.
Very, very short track.
How big are the paddles?
2-inch paddles.
2-inch paddles.
Narrow,
They're
with all the weight in the front.
Now?
They're 3-inch paddles, but like the geometry is so much different. But like at the time, they're pretty much like a trail sled that they're like, put a sticker on it. Mountain sled is like, it's not really not that much of it's different. So it's funny because like I so wanted to get a sled, and until I went sledding for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, this is so hard. And all of a sudden, like, it's like, in your head, you're thinking like, I'm going to be right there. And like when I first got stuck and I didn't know what to do with that fucking giant pig that was now, useless. It's like, I saw like this dream of mine, like it zoomed out so far. Like all of a sudden, like these peaks that you want to get to, they seem so unattainable because you're still on the road and you're stuck, kind of thing.
Stuck on the road.
Yeah. And it was just like, it's because we're trying to go up Black Tusk and find the way around the gate, because you're not supposed to go there. But at the time, it was like October, and we're like going super early with Aubrey and Dave B and Kyle Wolkachuk and a bunch of friends out there. We're just trying to make it out, and like, I got stuck like trying to go around the gate, and I was just like, it felt so hard. But anyways, that was getting me out there, and like, to me, that was a ticket to be able to go shoot with these guys. So I started going to shoot photos with Treetop Films a little bit, and then with other people too that had sleds, and I'd still shoot on the resort and all that. And then, yeah, it kind of like
Treetop was unique because it wasn't a big production company like MacDog, Standard Films. It was smaller and more local, but the talent was world class, and they were on some sort of a super mission to do the craziest backcountry shit. That's
exactly.
Ever been
Or
done.
like look at it as like, and that revolution was huge. Like I remember after that, like, you know, Snowboard Mag, like, and all these, like, it was about like sled access snowboarding. It was the new big thing. Before that, people were either using lifts or hiking or helis, but like sleds were starting to get popularized a little bit more, like through through Treetop Films, and like, you know, Standard Films would have shots of like guys going out with like old sleds too. So like it was kind of starting to be shown, you know, that you could get out in the mountains with.
Well, those are the two main zones, right? Like Utah has a lot of access with lifts, and they have sled zones too, obviously.
Yeah. But California, there's a lot of sledding.
California and BC are the two places really in the world that's really the pinnacle of sled access.
No, it pretty much is, because Europe, you can't really sled anywhere. There's some places in Japan that you can, but really, I think this is the Mecca. Like people always and that's why like for years and years, like people come from Europe and leave. They still do, like, you know, like they have their sleds here and they come sledding here. Like Mikkel still does that every year, and like a bunch of others. So I knew I was at the right place. So I said, if I get a sled. So I started shooting with these guys, and at one point, like, I need to expand my world a little bit. And I was like, okay, who do I need to meet that knows everybody that could get me into like just more connections, so I know more people? Because I was just a guy from Gatineau. I didn't know anyone before I came here. So I just like one hand, handshake at a time, like, oh, hi. Oh, you're this person. Hi, I'm Phil, and I have a camera. I'd love to come out and shoot. So I was thinking, like, at the time, like, okay, it's cool to shoot with the Treetop Films and all that, these guys, but they're a small gang, and you know, like, all the other photographers want to shoot with them too, because like they're the shit. So like I was competing with other photographers, and sometimes I just get bumped out. I couldn't go, so I got to find other people. So that's when I was like, oh yeah, Martin Gallant, like he made the I'd seen him at the skate park and stuff like that, and met him a little bit, but he'd made the Gathering movie. Oh yeah, one of the early movies that like really set the. It's kind of like the next step that after like Krebs that really formed the 418 and pushed that out. Martin was like, okay, like you guys need everybody that can't fit into MacDog or Standard. Like you guys will have a home with me here in Whistler, and if you guys are willing to rip and come out with us, like we'll shoot you, and I'll teach you how to shoot, because he's been doing it already forever, shooting with Berger and everybody else. So he knew how to shoot, and he was teaching all these kids how to build kickers and doing all that stuff. And he also kind of helped me like shoot photos. It's like, okay, if you want to come out with us, like you can do this and that. But I kind of had like a good idea what to do. I just needed to know more people who get out. And I went to introduce myself to Martin. It's like, hey Martin, I'm Phil. And he was super friendly right away. You know how he is. So it's like the best guy ever. And he's like, fuck yeah, come with us, bring your Kodak and you'll take some pictures. Let's see. You know, funniest fucking guy. But
has he always been that the whole way through?
He's never changed one bit. He's still the same guy to this day. Like
there are people back east, like, cause I grew up in Sudbury, which is 50-50 French English. It's a phenotype of French dude that he is. The funniest fucking person that you could ever meet.
Oh, like, yeah.
Just so.
And he loves to be in the spotlight too. So like, he sees it. Like when all of a sudden, like he starts to tell a story and eyes are starting to turn around him. He's like, okay, I'm going to turn into Martin, like actor Martin mode. And he starts to get really animated, and it just gets everybody going. Like it's the best, you know, like,
and there's some part of it that it's not an act. He's
not acting. He's just like, oh, I get to tell a story now. That's pretty much it. Like, he gets really excited, and
he was at the right place at the right time too.
Oh man.
When it came to snowboarding, like we're so lucky as like a world that Martin got into snowboarding, because he was just the perfect person.
Well, and he ended up like blowing up and making a name for like French Canadians with Kemper. And he
418
like all the stories where he's like,
gathering.
yeah, I had the gold card, Kemper gold card, and go to Alaska, and it was $50 a bump, and it was just like heli all day, and telling all these stories of who he's heliing with and doing all that, and like he was doing that before like most people were doing it at all, and but he was like with all the top dogs, you know. So
I think Andy Hetzel bought him an automatic weapon, like a AK-47 or some kind of gun.
yeah,
Like when they were
What?
down on a trip, like now all of a sudden Martin's got a gun, like
yeah,
like
that sounds familiar.
it's insane. it's awesome, and it's he was one of the original Quebec transplants to Whistler, and just like they call him the Godfather for a reason.
Well, he loves to help. That's just in his nature. Because like he helped me. He gave me a place to come and shoot photos. Same with Crispin, and same with Russell Dalby and a bunch of other guys that want to come out and shoot. It's just as long as you're stoked and you're fun to be around, like we'll take you out. Come and shoot some photos with us. And I end up like me and Martin are like really connected, like because we're both Frenchies, and I was pretty much the only French Canadian photographer except from Ollie Gagnon. He was also shooting photos, but he liked to shoot more jibbing and stuff like that. He would come out and sled, but he was often out on a jib trip, and I've never been on a jib shoot trip.
Wow, really?
I refused.
You're that mountain guy.
I'm like I'm not going to go waste a powder day where it could be good in our mountains to go hang out in some fucking city, and like, no way. So like, I mean, I've shot jib if I go like, I shot some jibbing if we go on like on an international trip, and then all of a sudden the snow sucks and we have to do something with our day because like there's nothing else to do. Let's build something creative kind of thing. But like to go like to Minnesota and go shoot rails like
Quebec City.
Or Quebec City.
Yeah,
No, I moved away from there because I want to be in the mountains there. I'm not going to go back. Like I had no interest whatsoever. But like,
Interesting. That's cool.
I've always been into shooting photos to do what I wanted to do. Like, and I want to be in POW, I want to be in the mountains, like, and not to go back in the city. Like, and sure, like composition wise, like, it's cool. You have like, structures, and, you hear from like people that are really into shooting jibbing. Like I find backcountry so boring because all there is like trees and snow and skies and rocks. I'm like, you're not wrong, but sometimes like there's magic hour where the light gets nice or like whatever else. Like, but at that point, it's almost like that's the challenge, to try to make it look interesting and make it look fun to look at.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, what's the opposite? You've got like architecture and buildings and the built environment. That's kind of boring too.
Yeah, and it creates lines, and like sure enough, like I see like there's some really creative urban riding photography that I see, but like at the same time too, like hey, I don't want to go hang out in the back alley all day. Man.
I feel very similar to you in that. For me, no disrespect to street riders, but up until X Games Real Snow street stuff, where it was really creative and wild and huge, everything up until that, I was kind of like, it's not for me.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like
not a big deal.
Same with me, because like to me, like you hear like really freestyle oriented riders that are like, I fast forward the parts where they ride turns and and standard, and to me, I was like, those are the parts I watch, and the jib parts, those are the ones I had fast forward, because I was like, I don't fucking care, I don't relate to that at all.
Right.
And so I just like I always look for powder, and then
I've never heard anyone say it, but and I usually would fast forward those big mountain parts when I was a kid. But now it's complete opposite.
No, I mean, never. Like, I was like, these guys doing these nice turns. Because, I mean, like, when I started snowboarding, too, like, we didn't have parks. So, like, when I started snowboarding, I was skiing. I was skiing at Mont Sainte Marie, and I was in the racing team at the time. Yeah. And I never even made a race. I just want to like learn proper techniques. Cause like my dad showed me how to ski, but it was like, we call it spaghetti. Cause like you ski. Yeah. And you look like a fucking noodle, but I want like, I see people ski better. I was like, no, I want to learn how to ski properly. But then, I did that for a little bit. So like up until like pretty much we're about to start doing races, I would ski with a race team and practice and get better techniques and whatnot. But like at the rental shop, they started renting these Rossignol snowboards that they had like a twin tip shape kind of thing, but you could put there are ski binding, like they're like hard boot bindings on them.
Yeah.
So you could put on like your ski boots onto that.
Sure.
And then I was like, these look cool. And I'd snowboard like behind my parents' house. There's a really fun hill that we used to go tobogganing in, and people started bringing like Mogul Masters and Legends SCs, and I've tried them a little bit and stuff. I was like, that shit's pretty cool. And I'm skiing and I don't have one of those yet. But then on the lunch breaks, when I was doing this racing team thing, instead of going in for lunch, I go rent a snowboard for the lunch, and then right away, I've probably also because I have ski boots and there's no flex.
Yeah.
But I learned how to do a toe side carve
Proper
almost right
carves.
away. Like,
Yeah,
and that's when I was like,
carves.
skiing at the time, like the skis were like, there's no side cut
No
almost.
side
So like
cut.
the turn was very side slip oriented.
Yeah.
Where with a snowboard, I learned to carve, like do these massive toe side
Pencil
carves.
Yeah.
So I couldn't heel turn really good. I'd fall on my back, but then if I get on my toe side, I could rail a mean toe side carve right off the bat. And I was like, I'd never had that feeling before on skis. And after a few days of doing that, like I'd taken an extra run because I want to do more toe side carves. And I from the top of the last pitch, I could see my whole team that was there, and I was a few minutes late. And I was like, oh, I'm going to come down and I'm going to do this massive rail turn and just carve so hard, and they'll think it's so cool. Yeah. But then I do I do just that. I just do this massive carve, like dragging my hand, like, and I get back up and I'm like, yeah, in my mind, and then the coach is like, you do that one more time, you're off the team. I'm like, all right, fuck you guys, I quit.
I'm off the team now.
Yeah, I'm off the team. And I just went snowboarding for the rest of the day. I've never put on a pair of skis again. And then,
oh, that's amazing.
So then at the time, I started snowboarding with hard boots. And my first board was an Oxygen hard boot kind of board where I learned
narrow and
narrow,
like
long, but the carve, like we had no
Did it have the base that was like black and white, like kind of like marble cheese or something?
Yeah, I forget what it was. Like it was kind of like more pink and orange or something like that. It was kind of day glow. It's pretty cool.
Sick.
And then after that, my second board was a Burton Factory Prime. Like it was like 195 missile thing.
Shit.
Just like,
so then, you were going to be a racer, basically.
I was, sort of. I was carving because that's the
going fast.
Because like that's the feeling that I could find that was really cool.
Yeah.
And going fast and like with those boards, like you could rail a heel slide turn like being on the ground. It was epic. It was so much fun. And then, but then they started building parks. And then I hit tabletops with my Factory Prime, and just like
you're sitting straight
it's just
up.
like, well, I do indies and newts, but then I was like, this doesn't feel right. And then that's when I got my first freestyle board. Was a one snowboard with baseless bindings and 32 low tops. Like they didn't have like an actual top of the boot. It's pretty much like a padded Converse boot kind of thing. Like
totally,
such shit.
Totally. And one was like a sister company to Division 23.
Oh, was it? Yeah. I knew nothing about it. I just like somehow this thing ended up in my hands, and I was just like, okay, cool. And I haven't been on hard boots since, but like, I always loved free riding. Like I think that's where it continued from the big mountains. I was like, I can carve this. And then when I came to Whistler for the first summer or something like that, like I didn't even go straight to the park. I was like, look at these mountains. And it was all slushy. And I was like, let's go ride. Like I remember riding at Cougar Chutes and like soda and couloir in the slush. And my roommate, my roommate at the time was like, why the fuck did we come here? This shit sucked. But I was just like, that was the best run of my life
because
so
you
far.
want to go to the gnarliest shit. I see it with kids, like with my kids, like they talk about black diamonds. Like, let's go to a black diamond. Like that's the natural progression of, like, okay, I can ski. I'm skiing a green run. Oh, you've graduated to blue. Oh, blue.
Oh, yeah, until you ski
go
the
to
double blacks.
Yeah, then you go to Sudan Couloir, which I remember the first time I rode it and thinking, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Then you look down and you go, oh,
it's just like this thing.
It's steep, but it's doable.
And I'd seen it in ski movies and like like this movie Ski School, like this kind of comedy, super funny movie. Like it was in Whistler, and it wasn't really that, but like I'd seen all of it, so I was like, I didn't move out here just to go in the park, so I went to kind of free ride right away, and that's why like in the end, like I just want to. Like I always enjoyed shooting freestyle, like because I love to see progression. I love to see like sessions go down, and they also make good photos. Like it pop in the air and stuff like that. Like it shoots really well. But like, I like go shoot at contests, like and go travel to shoot like for. Like I really was never into that. Like I was just like, okay, let's go in the mountains more than anything.
Let's use this as a tool to get to wicked cool places.
Yeah. And then in the end, like, after I started shooting like with the Gathering and going out, and like I shooting a lot with Martin, and Martin was really into free riding. Like he was really good freestyler, but like he always loved doing big lines and stuff like that. And and yeah, so I shoot a lot with him, and like we became a good little team for a few years where we'd go. Martin, you know, his technique was that he'll go with a crew that's building a kicker, and he's not going to build the kicker because he doesn't want to hit it or whatever, but he'd steal the photographer. And while you guys are building your kicker, let's go shoot some photos over there of freeride stuff.
Amazing.
And we always look for like, I love like shooting backlit stuff with a lot of, shadows and whatever else, and show the person in a bigger canvas kind of thing. But
yeah,
like he'd look at me like, hey, Tifo, do you like this shadow thing over there? If I pop a method, I go, oh, yeah, that's going to look good. So he knew what I liked and I knew what he'd like to ride. So like for, a number of years, like we barely had to like, hey, let's go shoot this. Oh yeah. We could read each other's mind of like what we're after kind of thing.
Sick.
And I had like, countless photos of Martin published everywhere. Like sometime I remember there's like this one method that had like these wind lips that are all kind of backlit, and it made a beautiful photo, and I think I had it published in like 5-6 mags during that year, because they're all like at the time with like before fucking Instagram and internet, like you could sell a photo to North America, to England, to France, to Japan, to Australia, to all these different distributions that the magazines would never see each other's publication. So you're safe to send your photos in different places. Now you can't really do that anymore because like
it's online.
It's online, and
once it's online,
the exclusivity has changed so much. But at the time, like that, and that's why like it was, if you're successful as shooting enough photos for editorial, you can make decent cash because like you could sell the photos to a bunch of different magazines and being able to get like. Yeah, get paid in pound and euro and all this and that in these currencies that were like making like way more money. So
totally.
Like that was like my cash cow for a while. Like because I've never
taught you to submit to all those magazines. Was there
Colin probably?
Did
like
you have a mentor like Colin?
Like Colin a little bit, but then at the time like there really wasn't much. Like I just learned like through meeting Colin that I have to know the photo editor.
Yeah.
So I had to meet the different photo editors. So like I look at like the table of content where it says the people's contacts and stuff like that. I'd be like, open a mag. If I want a photo in Snowboarder mag, I like gotta open this page and see like this thing, and like, okay, there's like at the time like Jeff Baker was editor of Snowboarder. Yeah. And I sent him an email, and like, which is interesting too, because like with Jeff, like I remember the last real job that I had in the village, I got fired from because I stayed late to shoot Martin doing this big double drop on Mount Fee. And it was like the light was going to be sick. And I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to work as a freaking busboy and miss that moment.
Yeah.
And stay till sunset, and he hits the line, and it's epic. And then I get this really nice photo, a horizontal shot there, just like it was the snow falling, and you see his boot pack all the way up. Like it was pretty beautiful. Sick. And then I show up to work at Mongoli Grill, and Ingo, the manager at the time, I'm like, oh, sorry, Ingo, I'm late again. He's like, well, we called someone to take your spot, and I'm going to do you a big favor right now. You're now a full-time photographer because you don't have a job anymore.
Wow.
You can't show up late and do this all the time. Like,
but he had the wherewithal to be like, chase your fucking
dream. And like the thing that was cool working at Mongoli Grill is that Chris, the owner, he's a shredder, and like countless writers came through his restaurant. Like Chris Wilson worked at Mongoli Grill. That's how I met him, was through the grill. And a bunch of other guys came through the grill, like Joel Loverim worked there, and like
who's the owner? Chris
Miron.
Yeah. He's childhood friends with people from Sudbury.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's
I never knew him, but he's a legend.
He's a super cool guy.
He's
so like
legend,
everybody wanted to work there because like it was a really cool restaurant.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, like when Ingo was like, "Yeah, go be a photographer," then I was like, "Okay, now I really got to bring in some cash," and I started painting houses that summer because like then that was a good job that paid all right, but it didn't destroy you too much. So I could go climbing after work.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of fun to paint. You're up in the ladder.
Belzil does that stuff, right?
Yeah. So, I ended up like getting fired for that job, but it became, Jeff Baker was coming from Whistler, and we got in contact, and I went to meet him at the gas station. He's like, I heard that you got a good photo of Martin. Can you bring that slide to me? And We were at the Husky and
How would
in
he
Whistler.
have heard that? Martin calls him. Hey,
Martin,
get that Tifo.
Martin calls him, or I think maybe I wrote to him. I forget.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
so long ago. I forget what happened.
Sure.
All I remember is being at the gas station with Baker, looking at the slide through the light at the gas
Just at the
pumps,
yeah.
just to look at it and be like, "I'm keeping this." And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh shit!"
Sick.
And that was my first spread page in Snowboarder Mag that came out after that.
Nice.
So it cost me a job at the restaurant, but whatever. At least I had now I had
That's perfect.
my first photo in Snowboard and a good relation that was established with the mag, and that's who I ended up like getting supported with the most, like in the long run. I did like a lot for years. I did a lot of international trips. I was teaming up with Carlo with Alternative Films.
Yeah.
And every year, like I'd find this weird place to go snowboarding at, and we just go out and make a cool snowboard trip of going out and somewhere cool. Like we went to Turkey and
Wow.
different places. Every year we pick somewhere different. We went to Slovenia.
Rad.
It was super cool. Like I was just finding these different places to go, and like I'd sell my articles to Snowboard Canada, then I'd sell these articles to all these different mags all over the place again. So like I'd make like a good little cash with those trips. And then after that, Snowboard Bridges invited me to go shoot with Standard Films in Terrace for a 2-week heli trip.
Whoa.
So that was my first
Who
heli
were
trip.
the riders?
Matt Krappel, Sammy Lubke. There's a whole crew that was there. There's like, I think 8 riders. Lonnie Kalk was there. Torstein. Fuck, that's also a long time ago. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of who I remember. There's a big crew that was there. But
Up-and-comers.
Mads Janssen. Like
Oh, wow.
we became
Yeah.
brothers. Like freaking love the guy. We really connected together.
Sick.
So yeah, Mods was like one of really good friends, and at the time after I met him, and I think we shot a little bit. That's how it was, because I was shooting with Travis Robb when he was filming here, and I shot with those guys and John Jackson a few times. And because to me, like I always love Standard Films, guys, all the stuff,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
my goal was to shoot with Standard Films and Absent Crews, because I
Sick.
want to be with those guys. They shoot like the snowboarding that I want to document.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah,
the
that's
best of the best for that genre.
for that genre.
Yeah,
Like I didn't want to
yeah.
go build cheese wedges. Like I was okay doing that, but like I want to shoot like what these guys were doing. And so yeah, I got invited to go shoot with for that snowboarder trip in Terrace, and we killed it. Like it was really good. It was super, super fun. It was like such a mind opening experience. I've never worked in a heli, but Travis was really good, and Eva
Rad.
Guide was really good at teaching me the ropes of, you know, I was the most rookie of the entire crew, you know, but everybody was super nice and welcoming, and then I did a good job. And then after that, Pat was like, well, we'll pay your expenses every year now. We'll just give us your bills of what you shoot. You give us first dibs on your photos, and then after that, you can sell the rest to whoever you want.
Wow.
So I was like a staff contributor kind of thing, because like my stuff was all paid for.
Right.
And I didn't have an overhead anymore. Just like every month, I just give all my bills from my travels and whatever else. And then I get to shoot for Snowboarder. And
So here's a question that's come up over the years, not on the show, but just in life. Who owns the photo? Who owns the photo if, like, so when you send it to Snowboarder and then they decide we're keeping this one, and they send you back your stuff,
Yeah.
and you can send this to anyone else. Do they own the photo at that time? Is that money that they paid you to get that photo like an ownership?
they own the exclusivity.
They own exclusivity.
Like I
to
own
it.
as a copy.
But if they go away as an entity, now you take your photo back and you
Oh
own it
yeah,
again.
100%.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like anything that you have. It's like normally they'll have exclusivity for a year, or
1 year.
for the publication period kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if they call first dibs, if they want to use it, and they're like, yeah, we're planning on using it, like you can't sell that, send it to another mag that's going to be on the same shelves.
Yeah,
Because then like you'll totally burn yourself if you get
it happened in the early days.
Oh yeah. I remember somebody had a cover of the same like Transboard and Snowboarder the same month.
I sat at a dinner that month and said it in front of a whole bunch of people, like, who's in charge of this fucking shit show? And I was not. It met with, people were not stoked that I
Yeah,
said that.
no, that's not ideal. So you have to be, and that's the thing that's tough too, because like mags will keep your photos, and they still do. Like they'll keep your photos, and you're hoping that they're going to use them. They're like, oh, we're going to pick these shots, and then after that, you can send the other ones to whoever you want. But like, okay, like
They expire at some point, right?
just at one point, like everybody's made their pick.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you'd be like this shot that you're really hoping that you're going to get published doesn't get used because for X reason, they just didn't have the space, or a sponsorship thing come through with like paying for an ad slot or something like that, or whatever else.
Right.
So sometimes you'd be really disappointed and sometimes you'd be really happy. But I feel like that's part of like what was so special about at the time getting your photos in a mag, because like you had nowhere else to have your photos promoted.
Yeah.
So like that's what I loved at the time. Or I would be really bummed out if I'd open an issue and be like, oh, I really thought I was going to get a photo in there. Like nothing's there. And then you flip the pages and be like, not me.
Yeah, you see the cover and you're like, oh, we open the first few pages. Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
It's a weird thing because it's not like, it's not jealousy towards other photographers because everybody goes through the same thing. Right, but like, it's more like, God damn it, I want a photo published in that mag, or I want to have something, or I thought they were going to run this photo.
I thought they were going to run this photo. I already told the writer.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Hey,
or I've been
spread.
holding it for this amount of time, and then now it's too late to use it anywhere else, and then you didn't use it, especially when it came to the last mag of the year.
Yeah.
Where you're like, that's the last chance that this photo is going to come out, and then you finish the pages, and then you're like, shit, I just didn't get anything in there. So, which, is disappointing, but it's also part of the game. But it was also, what was awesome about being in magazines. And, everybody from our generation always talks about how the anticipation of getting a mag in the mail, where you're going to get the mag and you're so stoked to see what happened. And as a viewer, just to see what snowboarding is all about that month. But for us, like, I remember being at Creekside and Food Plus and seeing like fellow like riders that were looking at the mags, and the mag would come out and be like, oh, the mag's at the store. Let's go to Food Plus and Creekside and check out, see who's got photos and what.
Totally.
And for us, like, the people that were part of making these pages, because our work was in there, it was either a surprise or a bummer. But at the same time too, like when you had your photos that would come out, like there's really nothing like having the photo that you work for and that you went out and shot with your friends and you took risks to get out there, and you come back and now you have like these photos that are in the mags and that'll last forever. And now like I have all these boxes in my crawl space that one day I'll show to Owen and be like, look at what Dad was doing when he was younger, And,
Totally.
And even at the time, that's what I was thinking about. Like when I have a kid, I'll keep these and I'll be able to show it to him and just be able to, see what your old man was doing when he was younger and his aspirations and what my dreams were. And that's what I want to do. So hopefully that'll be something that he wants to follow. But but it was super fun. And like everything just changed when the crash happened, and it was like the two punches of the 2008 crash and Instagram that was invented. And I remember,
how did you fare with the film to digital thing? Because that would have happened pretty quick in your career, right?
That was around, I got my first digital camera in 2006.
No, so that's not even close. You
a couple of years,
like 97, 98, 99?
Yeah, I was shooting photos like for fun, 97, 98 kind of thing. And then for real, 2000, then I was shooting everything on slides. And I love like the different looks of different slides and films and whatnot. And then when...
what was your film? What was your favorite one?
Fuji Provia. Provia. And then if you want to have more saturation, then you get a Velvia. Or if you went somewhere that had more yellows, then you get a Kodak. Yeah. Like the color of the boxes would essentially which for real, because like Kodak, like the boxes were yellow, so it had warmer tones, while the Fuji was green, so it had a more like greenish blue, very true to the eye kind of look, especially the Provia. That's the one that had like the most crisp look. There was like the whites were white, the blues were really blue, and it really looked like the best look that was like true to the eye, I feel, as opposed like to some other that had like a different like tone that was a little warmer, like the Kodak or something like that.
Sure.
I don't know. I've always been like a purist. Like I didn't get on Instagram forever because I was like, fuck Instagram. And then I didn't want to switch to film because I was like, I'm going to shoot film. But then like the inconvenience of film became apparent really quick. Cause like at the time, like you had to scan all your slides and then email your previews to all the mags, and then they pick their previews, then you mail the photos, and then after that, you're done with that, can you mail them to this mag and to this mag? So it took like from April to August for all the mags to cycle through your photos until at that point, okay, we're done, like mags in North America doing their picks, and after that you get hopefully all your photos back in the mail. Then you're like, okay, to Europe now and to Japan and to wherever else. And then you're like, my photos are going across the world. Maybe I'll see them again. People are pretty good at returning them, but like, sometimes they just didn't. But the inconvenience that it'd take like half a year to be able to get Max to see your photos until like when I got my first digital camera, and all I had to do was like copy paste, like
nuts,
control copy, control V, and now my photo exists in 2 different places. Now I can send them all to everybody and have everybody make their pics. And
what camera body did you go to for digital?
Nikon 5. I feel like I really should remember that model. It's like an early Nikon, I
think D5, right? Like
D5.
There's a 5D
because
Canon,
that's the thing now. I'm confused with
D5
the Canon that has the 5D, but I think it was a D5.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And that was my first digital camera. Like,
that's a sick camera, right?
It was good.
Yeah.
But like if you shot like anything at night, like past like 400 or 800 ISO, like it looked so noisy. It was such shit. The blacks were terrible. Like the sensors were really the infancy at the time. But the user friendly part of it to just be able to copy paste, and all of a sudden you just email shit. You don't have to like physically mail, because it's also kind of getting expensive to FedEx your photos everywhere.
Hell yeah.
So like all you have to do is just email your previews, and then you email them the raw files, and it's just like boom, done. You're just like
that.
Hey man, I'm done my submission season like in a month from the cycle, and then I can go do something else and whatever else. But then then it was really cool to go with digital. And at the same time too, like then it became simpler to travel because you didn't have to have like film, and like the film was not cheap. Like a box of 20 Fuji Provia was $400 with
and
processing.
They'd want to send them through the X-ray sometimes. Like, hey, what do you got?
What are you gonna do? And like, and then you have to look at the film and stuff like that. And like, it was kind of a pain in the ass. And then with digital, then it became like a lot simpler to travel. You just need a hard drive. But at the time, that was before Lightroom existed, so there wasn't really a good system like Adobe Lightroom, the application. To touch up, but the thing that was really
with your photos, right?
The thing that was really useful with Lightroom when it first came out is that it had cataloging platform. So it created a library for you. So as you import your photos, it creates a folder for the day that you shoot. So it's like much easier to organize your photos. And after that, to be able like, I just shot like a day, I'm going to go back it up on my backup. And then even like knowing that I should back my shit up, I didn't know about that until I lost my first day of shooting from like erasing something and be like, fuck, I lost my photos. And oh no, it's because you got to double back your shit. Like we didn't have there was no instruction manual until like Zimmerman came to Whistler to do a conference to explain how Lightroom worked. And a bunch of us photographers sat in a room, and Zim told us how about it was, and everybody went like it was so mind blowing, just the user friendliness of that platform, because it is made for professional photographers. You need to cycle through photos really quick. So the thing was a lot simpler in Photoshop, and being able to organize your photos was a lot easier. So now all of a sudden you just had to travel the world with 2 hard drives and a computer, and it was way simpler.
Yeah. So you'd get external hard drives. They must have been just so expensive at the time.
Like there's like $150 for $200 for an external hard drive.
But they weren't terabytes at that time.
No. But the photos weren't. Also, the photos were like 10 megabytes.
Right.
Like now you need terabytes if you're shooting like video 4K 120 frames a second, and then you're shooting like a lot of like big volume.
This shit, each of these cameras has 256 megabyte cards.
Yeah.
And they'll get, that's only 3 hours worth of 4K.
Yeah. That's exactly. It takes a lot of space. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, it was cool because then I was able to like, when I started traveling for photography and shooting snowboarding, that's when it was pretty much at the same time as digital era.
It's crazy because you've got a job, and literally the job completely changes, right? Like the job of a film photographer versus the job of a digital photographer, they're not the same job.
Well, they're not the same job. And like, as far as you get it, like working for clients, especially if you're working like on a set or something like that, like sure you could shoot like Polaroids to look at like, do you like this composition or whatever? But like now, like when you're working with like, a high paying job where like the stakes are super high and you're shooting a photo, now it's like you shoot the scene and you go look at the client and be like, do you like this? Or let's put it on the computer. Do you like this? Yeah. Oh, let's manipulate this. Let's move this around, whatever. So now when you do a job that like Yeah, it's just like
but the job changes for you, but it doesn't change for anyone else. Right?
no, not really, because like anybody else, they want to get images, and for you, you're just providing them, and it's just in the end, like you have peace of mind after your shoot, and if you know you're really dialed, especially like if you're shooting a slide film, because the latitude, like how much you could underexpose, overexpose was really minimal. You had like half a stop, so you know, for people who understand like what stops are, just how much light that if it's too bright or too dark, you really didn't have that much, and then it looked like shit. And then if it's too underexposed, you couldn't really fix it up in post because you're fixing a digitized scan. So when raw files came out where you can actually change the integrity of the shot, where make it brighter, you're actually changing the units within the image itself. You're not like adding pixels on top of pixels to make it look better.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, like, I have a better margin to be able to, if something goes wrong with my exposure or anything like that, but I'm also seeing what I'm doing. So it just gives me like that much of a better chance to, you know, deliver whatever my client wants and be happy. Or same with like, if you're shooting like snowboarding wise, like now we can look at our shots and be like, look at this photo. Do you like your style?
Right.
Do you like your grab? Do you like how it went? And like, you know, a lot of times it's just like, you got one more in you. Cause like, you know, for a rider, like you go in the air, you do something, it felt really good. And then when you look at it, it's like, it was good, but like, I've seen you do a better one of this.
Was like this.
Your hand was like that. You let go of the grab, or your method wasn't tweaked really high, or whatever it was. And here's what it looks like. Do you want to do it again so that you have a better style? Because in the end, like for riders, it's just like, how good do you want to be portrayed once this shot runs? Do you want to have something that's going to look like shit, or that you're going to be like, fuck, this shot's running and I look like an idiot? Or you can go back up and do it perfect and be like, yeah, you look at the back of your camera and now you're like, look, we got it. High five. Okay, cool. Now we can move on and do something else.
Yeah. I love the camaraderie between, like, really the job of professional snowboard photographer, which, I mean, it still exists out there some in a different way. I was going to say, I remember when digital came in, just as an enthusiast being like, well, what's stopping people from like photoshopping the air, making it a bit bigger, or touching up the background or whatever? Because the trick is the thing that you can't fuck with the trick.
No, you can't fuck with the trick, but you can fuck with the background, which is like, you know, at the same time, like that's also the trick, especially when you shot film. Like, I need to get these tracks out of my shot. How am I going to compose my shot so I get the tracks out of the way?
Right.
And that was part of it. It's like, oh man, now there's these tracks are like the landing is getting beat, and I don't want to show that. I need to find an angle that's going to be different where you don't see the tracks anymore.
Yeah.
And like for anything for mags or anything like that, like I would never even think about taking off a track and submit my photo, because it has to be documented. And I still always going to try to really make my best effort to shoot it as in reality, with a reality and be integral to what it is going to be.
Yeah.
But then if it's like a client that like there's something that they don't like, and then in the end, like if you buy the photo to use for your brand and you want to take out a tree or track or whatever, you do whatever you want. But for anything that's going to be like published as like a historical value, this is what happened. It has to be right.
Interesting.
But advertising, like if you want to like fucking add tracks, like do it. You know, if you want to make it look like whatever you want, you bought the rights for the photo. You can do whatever you want with it.
Put bunny ears on your rider, go for it.
Yeah, go for it. But like as far as like, you know, and like in the end, like sometimes you take out a track and then it looks good. It's like, okay, cool. Like, are we selling what you want to sell? And that's all that matters in the end. Yeah. But like,
there's a lift ticket shot for Grouse, where I know that the person that took the photo, the rider didn't have a helmet on. And
really?
So they just put a helmet. This is like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, that can't be true. Like, I remember looking at the photo and being like, no, that person's wearing a helmet. Like, it looks like you can't tell.
You can't tell. But if you just find like the right angle, make it small, like, yeah. That's the thing with digital manipulation. You can, sky's the limit now, especially with like AI that's doing anything like generate background for this. It's just like all of a sudden you're just like, I see like the latest like Photoshop features that you can do. It's just like, it's so transformative. You can do like these AI video clips. You start with like this drone shot and say generate lift with swirl and whatever else into space and like boop, 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 enter the thing, and then your simple drone shot now turns into all of a sudden you look at your shot from space. It zooms out. It's unreal what you can do. But
yeah, I remember thinking a few phone generations ago that when I take your picture, it's just going to have a grid behind of what I want the picture to look like. Mm-hmm. So I like point at you. It doesn't matter if you're smiling or frowning or anything.
You can manipulate that, yeah.
It knows it's you, and then your favorite picture of you kind of comes up in the background of, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like your preference. You're like the person who's having their picture taking will have a preference that's in the cloud that everybody's phone will know. Oh, they only like this angle or whatever. So then I'll be like, oh yeah, I was with him, blip, and it was sunny, blip. Oh, there's the chief in the background.
It's like you can create the memories that you want.
You could create whatever memory. We didn't go to the chief, but we were in Squamish, and it was a sunny day. You know, like it could be reality. It could be what it looks like right now.
Well, that's why like Instagram. You can always say Instagram lies.
Right.
Because it could be anything, and now especially with that kind of like manipulation, we can like transform an image completely. Then it's
well, I don't know if you know this, but TikTok. I heard it in a podcast that TikTok. So none of these apps are required to report any manipulation that they do.
No, they don't care.
So TikTok, I think, was the very first one to add filters to people. So they just enough. They don't know, but they look better in their photos on TikTok.
Yeah.
So they feel better about them. Then they look on their Facebook ones or their Instagram ones. They're like, ugh.
Especially with TikTok. Like with people that are models and whatever, they just want to, embellish their skin or
but
whatever.
Just everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like if I remember when I first happened on my phone, the portrait thing. I used portrait, and my wife and I did like a selfie of the two of us. And, wow, that really looks nice. And in the future, when I would be doing a selfie on photo, she'd be like, put it on portrait because it touches us up and maybe makes our eyes a little bit more wide or bigger, whatever it's doing.
The thing that it's doing is that with portrait mode is that it's creating depth of field. Because if it goes with the one lens, everything's in focus and there's no separation between a background. Yeah. Well, if you take it with portrait, it separates the background and makes it like it makes it look like you took a photo with a real camera, sort of, because there's a focal difference.
Right.
And then,
but they also can add embiggen eyes a tiny little bit without, they don't have to report that.
No. They
just don't have to say it. Like tweak your smile or make the face more symmetrical. It can do that. And how would you know? You don't know.
Well, if you're just on the other end of the
you're like, wow,
phone,
that's
it's just like, oh, wow, that's a good picture. That person looks good, or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like that's almost like what after a while, like, not that I lost my appetite for photography, but it changed so much because the appreciation for like real photography it's just so not the same anymore.
Yeah, what was there 6-10 years in there where people were saying you can't be a pro snowboarder if you fucking suck at snowboarding, but that's not true anymore.
Well, if you market yourself well, if you're, you create a good following and you can get
good content that satisfies your following.
Yeah.
You're not doing triple corks.
Which now, like in the end, like I find like it went from like MacDog films where like if your hand touches the ground on a landing, your shot's on the cutting room floor.
That's it.
It's out. But now like, and in the end, like, that was so exclusive. That's why, like, Galen at the time, like, started like the gathering because we don't need to be so like picture perfect and whatever. As long we're gonna try to be cutting edge writing, but let's make it look fun and like it's part of like you could do this sick trick and if you touch your hand on the ground, who cares? Like, does it really matter? But at least we're still gonna portray good snowboarding. And now it's like there's a lot of subpar stuff that's out there that and in the end, like people. You're just fucking scrolling and it's just like this snowboard thing, this surf thing, whatever it is that you're looking at, you kind of get inundated with it. And I just think of like how it started for our generation where like we didn't like what we were talking about earlier, where I saw my first extreme sport and high five.
Right.
There's like nothing that was available. I loved like watching like ski school or like Aspen Extreme like changed my life because I was like, dude, you can move in a van and they were skiing in the movies. Yeah. So I thought that was super cool. And they moved out west from their little East Coast place. I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. I didn't quite get a van, but my buddy and I at the time, like that was our dream, you know. But like, like the exposure to these sports were so like finite, you know. There really wasn't that much of it, and now like it's complete opposite. There's like an overload of it, which
I think as a consumer of content for a very long time, starting with BMX into skateboarding into snowboarding, like films, magazines, like magazines were so important, right? The photos, they were so good. So the magic in those photos, I learned over the course of my life that a great photographer like yourself, like you could take a great photo of me. Let's say we go out, we pick a spot, you have the right eye for it, composition. And so the magic was you guys were the photographers. That was a part of what right? Because of course there was magic in the snowboarders, the skateboarders, the athletes. It's there. And then the photographers would catch it. But,
well, it's like it's a very like symbiotic relationship in a sense that like photographers don't exist without the talent. Talent can be portrayed without the photographers and the filmers. But I feel like with photographers, like it's one frame, so you really capture the style of a trick.
Yes,
you really capture like that moment in a turn or a line or whatever it was. Like
yes,
you know, especially like doing lines. Like what was the most critical moment at the time that really, as a viewer, now puts you on your toes. Like doing a turn, like or like something like doing a turn right above exposure. Be like, holy shit, what happened after that?
Yes,
where like now the only way you're gonna get to see it is if you go see a snowboard movie where that action was documented as a motion picture. But our job was really to try to like capture that little moment and
that magic moment.
And like it wasn't like the half a second before or after that happened just for that millisecond that like the tweak went really good.
Yes.
The snow flew off of something. Like it just became magic.
Light,
and then the light happened and like a shot I took a Mods and Terrace where it was like last light and we're flying out and like there's still a little bit more time and like Mods from the air is like I could jump from this thing to this thing and okay cool, we'll drop you off and the sun is racing and it's gonna be dark really soon. And he built this little takeoff. Me and Travis get flown over to the next ridge and like just be like, okay, this is gonna be a good spot. And like Mods like air this massive freaking air gap. It was barely a landing, but anyways, it's huge, but like he's right above like the shadowed snow in the back, so like his red jacket really pops.
Nice.
But like it's these moments like that just happen like and 10 minutes before you didn't know that was going to exist. And I feel like to me that's what was always been an attraction to going out and shoot photos. Like you never like unless they have a kicker that you know you're going to shoot and you know where you're going to shoot it from. But like a lot of times like that's also what I like about going to shoot free riding and everything else, like we didn't know what was going to be on that day. We didn't know what we were going to shoot. And like, I love getting up in the morning, not knowing what's going to happen and coming back at night with a card full of photos that I didn't know were going to exist at the end of the day. And after that, seeing them in different magazines or outlets, it's just fucking came from like something we didn't know was going to exist until like, look at it now. It's like printed here and now the public can see it. And it's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah, so it's always been like a thing that I always loved, and like especially shooting film because I was like, you went out and shot some film and took some risks, maybe get lost in the mountains, and
let's talk about that.
Oh fuck,
let's talk about that.
So you almost get lost and you shoot some photos and you had to go all the way in the city to get your film developed, but sometimes you get lost, like that story that Lamry told you about where. Yeah.
So it's Sprout, right?
Yeah, I'm up on Sprout Mountain. So like if you're on Whistler looking out across the highway, it's kind of like that lower hump that's like convoluted kind of thing next to the big Rainbow Peak, like Rainbow Mountain. And I was there with a couple snowboarders. I can't name names.
To keep them.
Yeah, well, everybody learned a solid lesson that day. So what happened is that we just went out on Sprout to shoot a step down for the afternoon, like when the light was going to wrap around and whatever time it was. I was supposed to work that night at Mongolia Grill, and I just brought like food for the day, a little bit of water and stuff like that. And I was just thinking, all right, we're going to go shoot the kicker, wait and come back. But it's my first time on Sprout, and like that place, like when you're on top, it's very convoluted. It's like very like roly-poly, and it's hard to know where the exit is. It's hard to know like
which
way the trailhead is, kind of thing. It's very confusing, especially if you've never been there. Like you go to Brandywine and stuff like that, like you know where like you go down that big glacier, you take a right, it's almost like a road in the mountains, kind of thing. Like you follow the tracks, it's gonna go out there.
Especially
like,
now they groom it. Like
yeah,
so
you just groom there, and then but if you're out in the hills, like you still kind of always find your way. But anyway, so I was following, and it was my first year sledding, so I super sucked at sledding, and
oh no,
you had to go on this like kind of off angle traverse on a little hump kind of thing, and you had to go over the hump. And we've done a couple humps where like you could go to the top of the hump or the bottom of the hump, and then you'd join again and whatever. And then that one, I couldn't do the side hill, and I ended up drifting down. And I was like, oh, I'll be able to catch up around the next bend kind of thing. So these guys like went over that hump or whatever, and I went left, and somehow I ended up taking a wrong turn, and I went to the zone that just, there's sled tracks. So I was like, oh, I think it connects. And then little did I know is that if I would have gone down the one big hill, I would have met up with those guys, and the trailhead was right over there. But it was kind of a scary hill to go down, and I super rookie. I was like, I don't want to go down there. It looks fucking scary. I'm going to get stuck and they'll never find me. So I ended up like trying to go in circles, trying to find my way back. But like, cause it's like just humps that all look the same. I couldn't find where they went. So I circled around and like trying to find my way. And at one point, like, I remember it was a cold day. It was like minus 15, 20 that day. And I was like, the clouds were starting to come in, like high ceiling kind of thing. So it was getting really flat light. The wind had picked up. So like it became really flat light at one point. I couldn't tell like snow to sky, and I couldn't find where I was. And I was getting like fucking scared and cold. So at one point I'm like, they're going to find me, but I need to go find shelter somewhere. I'd gotten stuck a couple times. I was drenched in sweat, getting really cold. And I put my sled that was bright yellow in the middle of an opening, and I went on the lee side of the trees and dug a little pit kind of thing just to warm up. And like, somebody's going to see me. Somebody's going to see my sled. They're going to come back for me at some point. That was before radios. That was before cell phones. I got a cell phone after that mission, but like that was before all of that. So like if you're stuck by yourself without comms, you're kind of like, you're fucked. Like nobody knows where you are. You can't scream. Like,
yeah,
especially if it's windy. So anyway, so I'm like in the back of those trees. I'm like, okay. And then a heli flew over, and I was like, maybe by that time, like they call search and rescue, 'cause it's been like a couple hours since I've been separated at that point. Maybe they're going to call search and rescue, and a heli flew right over. And I was like, oh, sweet. Like they must have seen my sled. So they're going to come back, and the heli never came back.
Oh my
and
God.
Then that's when
was that heli looking for you even?
No,
probably not. Yeah,
Probably not. That's just my head. I was like, that's my rescue. No, not at all.
Yeah.
So that's when I really started panicking when they didn't come back to get me, because it was getting dark. And then I'm like, fuck, okay, like I gotta find this trailhead, like come hell or high water, like I'm gonna get out of here. And I get back on my sled, and I'm freezing because I, all sweat that's not frozen on me. And I see this little track that goes in the woods, and I'm like, fuck it, dude. I'm just gonna ride my sled to the valley. I don't give a shit about this stupid sled anymore. It got me in this situation in the first place. So I'm gonna drive my sled down to where I thought was the Callahan side, the Callahan Road. I thought I was like facing that way, but really I was facing that way. I was still new to the backcountry, so my orientation wasn't really great where I was.
So you think you're riding your sled towards humanity,
towards the low road that I think, like, if I go that way and I just drive my sled in the woods, which I really was not capable of.
Yeah.
But I was panicking, you know, I was like, it's getting dark. Like, fuck, am I going to die here? So I just ended up following this track. And then eventually, like, track became like a bit of a creek. And then creek became like this really big creek. And all of a sudden, I'm like, driving my sled, like, bouncing in this creek. And I start to see these giant gaping holes because there's a ton of snow that year.
Oh, fuck.
And I just, like, before that, I launched myself into like a 20-foot deep hole. I just lodged my sled in the side of a creek.
Yep.
Like, snow over the hood. Like, and now I'm like, okay. Now you're out of the sled zone, in the middle of the woods. It's going to be dark in half an hour.
Oh,
and
my God.
No one knows where the fuck you are, dude. So I was, you know, I just like, I didn't even bring my snowboard and since that day, I always bring a snowboard because you never know when you need to slide down a freaking mountain if anything happens. Even if you're doubling or whatever happens, like at least you can always ride down. You're not a burden.
Yep.
Or if you're stuck by yourself, you can at least go down a mountain because like at that point, I'm like at tree line and, you know, 4,000 feet of vert, 3,000 feet of vert to the valley left. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. Now grab my camera bag. I forgot to grab my water because it was in my little duffel on my sled, and I'm kind of panicking. So I'm going to start walking. I'm going to follow. The creeks lead to valleys. But then, like, it's getting dark, and I'm following down that creek, and like these holes keep appearing. So now all of a sudden, I was just like, dude, if I fall in one of those holes, like, you're gone. Like, nobody will ever find you. So I ended up like starting to traverse, and I'm gonna get out of the creek and go on the flank. But like when you look at Sprout, it's like a giant butt crack from a side because it's like really two places that are split in two, and the mountain split in two with that creek. So like I could never really get out of the creek because it was like the whole mountainside was turning into
the creek.
Yeah, exactly. So like for like hours, I'm like in like belly deep snow, trying to crawl through snow and get out of there. And eventually,
oh my God,
I got like really exhausted. Like my legs were cramping. Like every time I tried to move them because I was dehydrated too. So like my legs were cramping. And at one point, I'm like, okay, like you've been walking for 2-3 hours now, so maybe I dug a little shelter and I was out of the wind, and I sat on my pack and I just just doze off for a minute. And I was like, don't fall asleep because that's also how you'll die of hypothermia. So I kind of jolted up after half an hour. Okay, got a little rest. My legs were better. I'm like, you stay here, you die. So because at that point you become very aware that you're on the mountainside on your own, no communication whatsoever. And then I kept thinking I was going to end up on the Callahan sled road on the other side of the mountain. But like at one point I remember like seeing like I get over this rise in the dark because it's pitch black because it's dark. And I just see a semi truck drive way below me. I'm like, the fuck? You're on the highway side? So you're on where all these like lower cliff faces, it looks like from the valleys. So I was like, oh God, I'm not in a bad place. So at one point, like I kept having to walk, and like I'm like, okay, at least now I'm gonna get on the highway. And wherever I ended up, like it got really steep. I was like down climbing at one point, and like I took like this huge slide where I slid down and like smashed into a tree, cracked some ribs a little bit, bruised them at least. And then I'm like kind of hobbling out, and it's been like 6 hours of walking at that point, maybe. And
so it's like 10 at night.
It's like it's midnight. It's midnight, and
oh my God.
At one point, I'll never forget the sight of a cross country ski track. And all of a sudden I was like, boom, I was in the valley. I was on a cross country ski track, and I was like, crack ribs or not, I was like skipping. Yeah. I was like, oh my God,
like, I'm alive.
I'm alive.
I'm fucking alive.
And I ended up like at where it's like, it was called Miller Creek Cafe, and I had coins in my pocket. I called my girlfriend at the time, and I called that Mongolian Grill, and I didn't know, but there's like a bunch of people on different crews that they're all rallying to come and find me. Yeah. Because like I was now a missing person. Yeah. And my crew had went back to try to find me, and like everybody, like people were like, so when I called, like, you know, the tree, the branches starts to spread. Okay, he's out. And then like, you know, the search rescue got called down, but like, yeah, that was in like 2001. And like that set the tone pretty quick of like safety and like never leave someone behind in the backcountry. Everybody stops at the trailhead, and like my ethics got like so much like quicker. Like this is how you lose someone. Like you always check back. Like, so now when we sled, like wherever we are, like we don't go all the way out without looking. Like we finish a section, we wait each other at the bottom, and like,
yeah.
I mean, it became a pretty big learning experience, but at the same time too, like it's one of those things that when it became to like, I almost died to go shoot these photos in a sense.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
the appreciation of getting your photos published after that, where like I went so far out, and like I was telling my parents, like, cause they're like, what is it that you're doing out there? And I was like, oh, you know, it's awesome. We go way out in the mountains and we go get these shots, and we come back and go to the lab in the city, and then you see your photos. But then I didn't tell my dad about that story until like his last years, until I was like, oh yeah, I'll tell you a good one, Dad. And like, he was just like,
Did
what?
you get your sled back eventually too?
2 days later, I went with Dave B, Kyle Wilkachuk, and I think like Matt Demansky was there. We found my sled, and we dug this big trench to be able to get it back out, and Dave B rode it out. I was like, I don't want to take the risk of that. You're the real sledder here. So he took my sled out and drove it out. And I was like, fuck this, I'm going home. And like somebody drove with me to the trailhead, and I'm like, I'm out of here. I don't want to be here today. And they went on top of Sprout and somehow dropped in the wrong side with their sleds, and they all had to get their sleds helied out that day after rescuing them. Yeah, because they're like, they dropped on the front side facing the highway.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, completely screwed. And like, yeah, so that like after rescuing me, these guys had to get rescued.
That's so wild.
But like it was wild back then, because the sleds were so unreliable, so you never knew what was going to happen. And like,
what a scary story. I was like just gripped hearing that. Like, how fucking scared are you every single ridgeline that you get to the edge and you look and you go, fuck.
Oh, there's just like, there's just always endless ridge, endless traversing out of the creek, like for hours. And it's like at one point I was like, it's like you're scared, but like you got to own your situation. It's like, put that fear aside and like execute.
I'm here. I'm walking out.
Like, I'm walking out.
Walked out. So how long of a walk do you think that was?
It's like 6 hours,
which is not
in kilometers. Like, I don't know, like maybe like 2 or 3, like, because it's like from like direct line. It's not that far
down,
from there, but just if you're walking and
it's waist deep,
and like it's very slow going. Yeah, it was a nasty story. So like. Yeah, it's but you know, it's like you choose to go out there and taking risks, but like
those ridge lines looking the same, or the rolls, like you think you're in one spot, but you're actually, and you think you're facing the way.
Well, that's the thing that was so weird, because I thought like at one point, like when I saw the semi truck drive by, like I still have that memory in my head, and I was so confused, like. I was like, your navigation skills suck, dude. You need to get better at this, because I was so on the wrong side of the mountain. Like,
but it happens out there. It happens. You know, it's like, you know, sleds break down, especially at the time too. Like, if you're willing to go out and snowmobile in the middle of the backcountry, like, and still to this day, you never know if your sled's going to break down. But like at the time, it's like. You knew you could count on something that's going to go wrong with someone's sled, or someone's going to get really stuck, or somebody's not going to be able to get out of a bowl to go home, or something's going to happen. Now, like the sleds are like, they're fucking rockets. Like, just pin the thing and you just go to the top most of the time, unless that you don't know how to ride them at all. But like, you can we tripled. My first day out on my sled, we were tripling on it.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. You could triple. We can never do that back then. You can barely tandem like 2 people on a sled.
Barely.
Remember, it's like Kyle Wilkachuk who taught me how to tandem and how to really like pin the throttle and chocolate bowl. Yeah. Now something we just go up without thinking. But like at the time, like that was a giant hill to go up with our crap sleds. Yeah. And I remember like when I had my Summit 700, my first new sled. Yeah, I was at the bottom of this big climb in Brandywine called the Gauntlet, that like there's a chute on one side and the Gauntlet on the other. I was with Paul Watt, who he did a lot of filming for Snowboards, and he was on his Polaris, and it was both our first time going up there, and like we're still talking about it once in a while this day, how terrified we were about going up there. And like, who goes to work fucking shit scared about like what's gonna happen throughout the day? Like, I mean, you definitely really want to get out there to be able to get your brain through all of that and be like, totally. It's almost traumatic. Like I remember, you know, like you having a hard time sleeping the day before. You're like, what's gonna happen tomorrow?
Right.
You know, you're a little scared about what the fuck's going to happen? We're going out in the middle of the mountains and like, who knows what's going to be thrown at us.
I would get tinges when I was snowmobiling of like, I'm a split second away from like just falling and hitting your knee on your sled, right? Like you could break your leg or something.
Oh yeah. Like,
and now you're in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's so far back to even deal with like a minor injury would be like the fucking most gnarliest shit.
And that's something you see a lot. Like as a photographer, like I've seen like more injuries that I would have loved to see. Like,
yeah.
And then like, yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, something happens. Like, oh, now we have a situations on our hand. Like this is serious. Like I wasn't there, but like when Jonathan Moore like jumped a cliff and smashed his jaw to pieces and he's like holding his mouth shut with his teeth in there.
Yeah.
Or countless people that, got hurt and had to get helied out or try to get
that movie that you
themselves.
Had a big part in making with DCP. Like when he talked about that, you guys were heliing when that happened, right? And he dropped in confidently to something that was like he should not have been.
But it's just like that was the heaviest day. And like, like as far as like shooting snowboarding, I sometimes like what makes me not want to do it anymore because I'm tired of seeing my friends get really hurt or almost die, which it doesn't happen often, but when it does, especially with the one with DCP, like fuck, we're having a great day. Like we've had 2 really good days. We're there with all the Now crew because I was working for Now Bindings, and we had like 2 epic days. And we had, I think like Jeff bought like an extra hour, so we'd have 2 hours. So David and Craven could go get a couple more laps and get a couple more shots the next day because it was going to be Bluebird. The snow was really good, and we shot a bunch of really good stuff. The guys rode like masterfully. It was beautiful, and then we're about to leave, and like. Anybody who knows DCP, like the guy is never tired and he always wants more. We call it One More Wave Dave for a good reason. But like, yeah, we had like a little bit extra heli time and like, and right where me and Connor, the filmer, were filming, like we were kind of sitting on a pedestal there, and there's like this perfect like spine wall that looked really good. And David, like, obviously because we sat there to look at the bigger lines in the back, and David's looking at, like after the end, everything's done. We're like, David's like, oh, what about that run? We're like, yeah, it's right there. The cameras are set up already. It's just go to your pickup and we'll shoot that line. We'll get out of here. But in the haste of being late in the day, David then sat and looked at the line exactly, because it wasn't a very big line per se. It looked like, oh yeah, I'll just get in here and I just got to turn around these 2-3 spines, and if I take a turn there, I'm just gonna ride down this flank, and like it's gonna look great, like from where we were, like. But David just ended up like taking a turn, and I'll never forget, like he takes that heel side turn way before that he was supposed to.
Right. He drops in like on his, what should be like still a traverse
he was still supposed to traverse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I felt somewhat responsible to explain it better, because like often like the cameras were the rider's eyes from the other perspective when we're communicating. Like you need to go like past this tree, take a turn there.
Yeah.
And then we guide them through the run. And like, from the best of my knowledge, we're trying to explain them like, you got to go there, past this spine, you got to go there. But there wasn't really a tree as a landmark to really be like, you got to go around that. After that, you're safe. So anyways, like David takes a turn, and when he's on his heels, I'm like, oh shit, not there. And he goes on his toes, and that's where you see him in the video. Like he sees in his eyes like, oh no, I shouldn't be there. And then after that, like the turn, like he gets kicked by his turn. He hits like something hard, and he starts like the worst tumble of his life. And then that's when like I saw him happen. I put my camera away, and I remember like looking at my photos, like I was shooting going down, and at one point I stopped shooting because I was just looking. Luckily Connor filmed the whole thing, so we had that to make the movie afterwards.
Yeah.
But it's still like I looked at David like tumbling, the worst tumble I've ever seen, and then he's just like laying still at the bottom. And it's not a good feeling to know that your friend might be dead, and you might have witnessed that, or if they're not dead, they're not walking after that. Like, but then he gets up and he traverses over.
Oh, shit.
He traversed out of the
I
line.
forgot that part.
Yeah, he traversed away. You don't see that in the film, but like he traverses away. And then me and Connor were like, okay, well, he's not dead and he's not paralyzed. And then like we ended up like, the heli comes in and Matt, like the guy saw, all of a sudden I have a brain fart or name of the guide. We just saw him when we were there. Anyways, so I'll remember later. But yeah, like guy comes in and heli comes and picks up the media. We go down and like we get David in a collar and Craven helps him get in the heli. And then we flew back to the heli base and I drove him to the hospital.
Right.
I was holding his hand like
it was far, right? Like you.
Yeah, we had a bit of a taxi to go back on the heli, so flew all that, and he flew us to the base because they're like their helis are not allowed to land at the hospital,
right?
So I had to drive him in his truck to the hospital, and I just felt bad for my friend. Like he's so scared of what, like when you have something like that that's gonna happen, to you, like all you think is like, what's the rest of my life going to be like? And am I going to be able to get back from this? And he didn't know what was wrong, but he was in a lot of pain. And then like when we get the x-rays and they're like, oh yeah, look at this. Like you have this fracture there. And like in the end, like the surgeon in Kamloops said that you're like mere like 2-3 millimeters from being quadriplegic or getting killed. Something like that. So like the fact that he survived and he didn't lose any control of his body or anything. And now, like, every time that we ride together, it feels like a celebration. Like, I was out riding with him yesterday, and, like, we don't talk about it all the time, but, like, we don't take anything for granted anymore. Like, we're so lucky to be out there and just be able to...
Both those stories are that, right? Like, both those stories are like, look, you can't take this... You have to take this seriously.
You have to take this seriously because, like, I have countless friends that passed in the mountains now, like, from accidents or unfortunate things or sickness, like Garrett Pendergrass that passed away of cancer and Gerhard Gross that passed away of stomach cancer before he was 40, like, and there's so many more like that. So like, you just really can't take life for granted anymore. And like, really try to appreciate, and there's like hardships and, being a dad now, like life is not always like, like super bubbly and fun. Like, it's like sometimes the reality of being a dad can be hard, but like, now it's just like, it's more like about like, man, how special is this that we're here together? And like for this time being, because like we're all going to be gone at some point or another, but the fact that we're here right now, I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. And it's not like I'm always like living like, thank you life, like 24/7, but it's just like when those right moments, when you just find yourself somewhere like inspiring and just, it's kind of striking for a second. You're just like, or this is just a beautiful moment with your friends or your wife or the people you love, or, I'm going to go pick up Owen here and I'm going to go Fred magic chair with them. And there's those little things, just like, man, the fact that we're still here doing this for the time being, it's pretty special. So, and now like, I don't shoot as much snowboarding as I used to anymore, but like, it's still like, that's also, I think about that, especially knowing that we're going to do this interview. I was like, man, the fact that I get to talk about like a little bit of my story, but really just the fact that like, man, I got to do that. I could have just like stayed in Gatineau my whole life and not see any of that.
Yeah, when you go back and you see your friends, like,
oh yeah, and
it's wild.
Oh yeah, I tell them the life that I do, and like I always had that feeling like, might as well tell them that I'm fucking living on Mars.
Yeah,
because it's like this, the life that we live out here, like going out and shred the hills and really like having your life driven from your passion. I mean, some people live very passionate over there too. I'm not saying they're not, but
tons.
We have to be pretty damn passionate to be able to say goodbye to our families and move out here and like, as French Canadians try to like make our mark here, because like at first it's not like we're the most welcome. Like people were nice and stuff, but like now it's completely different. Like everybody's accepted. Like
sure,
but like
in the early 2000s even still.
Oh yeah,
I
got called a fucking French frog like more times than I can count. But like I just laugh it off as like, fuck you squareheads. That's why we call the English people. I never understood. Well, it's the Gatineau Ottawa thing is where I grew up. We're right next to Ottawa, so we're across the river. Yeah. So we always like, and our bars closed later, so people will come from Ottawa when their bars is closed, and then come into on the Quebec side and start causing shit because they're drunk and like, you fucking Frenchies, blah blah. And then it would always cause some trouble, and I don't know why we call English people squareheads, but like, but I've never been, just because I knew what the West was. I've never been a separatist at all. Like I love Canada in its entirety, and like that's one thing I never liked about Quebec. Is like the fact that like, you guys want to separate, like. Fuck that, dude. Canada, we're so lucky to have this beautiful country from coast to coast, from Newfoundland to BC, and have everything that's included in it. It's such a beautiful place. I'm not like a patriot by any means, being like I'm proud to be Canadian. Fuck, I was just lucky to be born.
It's a weird fucking.
I was just lucky to be born here. So it's even without talking about the current politics, it's just the fact that like, especially with my students, that I get a lot of international students that come out here with a student visa to be able to take the course, and they live in Whistler, and then after a while, like when their visa's over, you gotta go.
You're gone.
Well, for us, like we get to just live here as Canadians if we want to. I feel like we're super lucky.
Yeah, we're definitely 100% lucky. This place is.
But the thing is, we're just happy. We're just lucky to be born here.
Yeah,
we could have been born anywhere else, but just happy to be born here. Like, so that's all it is. But
agreed. Yeah, incredible, Phil. Fuck, it's been nice getting to know you today.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing the new generation, you with your son, inspiring him to get out there. It comes up quite a bit in the show about authentic, being aligned with authentic passion, right? Like, and you talked about rock climbing, photography, snowboarding, mountains, lakes, the ocean, California. Like, a lot of people get through their whole life and their glory days or their like most passionate time was like high school.
I know. Yeah, exactly. Those are the years of my life. And I'm like, I'm still living the best years of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, photography wise, I was like, with Galin, like we talk about like our golden days, when like,
days. I love it.
Where like there's money in the sport and we're going to shooting and where everybody's getting paid and like
nobody's been to some of these places.
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
I'm sure some of the, and Mount Phi is like, it's so obvious. But
it's right there.
But he's the dude that probably did the first descent of it on a snowboard.
No, Dave B, I think did. Or
Dave
like
B.
Either Dave B or Jonathan or someone or Brian Savar maybe in the Treetop Films.
Oh,
like
there are a couple of people.
They wrote all that stuff before. Like, so, but these guys were, but that's also why I love shooting with these guys too. Cause I was like, let's go shoot some stuff that's never been seen instead of the same kicker that everybody goes every
Savard
cycle.
Is a savage, dude. He's such a badass.
I never got to shoot with him, but like I was always really inspired by watching him ride. I was like, that's like BC riding, and that and like Kel Stephens and Sheen Campos and seeing like the whole cast of the Treetop Films are like, these guys ride our mountains the best way possible.
Yeah.
And it's always been such an era. That's why like all these guys are like such legends, because they paved the way, and now like everybody goes out sledding, and like just because these guys were doing it first, and we're like, okay, that's the shit. Now like the resort, that's not enough anymore. Like if we want to go and get better stuff, like we need to either get in a heli or go on a big adventure and go sledding and roll the dice, like see what's gonna happen.
Yeah. You think about it, like for a lot of people, that trip that your dad won is like, oh my God, the guy won the lottery. Like he got to go to Whistler for a week.
Oh yeah.
And everybody else in town is like, yeah, well, I've never gone to Whistler. Never going to Whistler.
No, they'll never have been. And they'll maybe like, and maybe they're going to go for a week or something like that. They're going to go for their vacation. Right now, it's like, it's spring break. And I was on the hill yesterday. I hear like, there's way more Frenchies than usual. Oh yeah, that's right. It's French. It's Quebec week.
Is there Quebec?
It's Quebec week right now. But
that's amazing.
But like for him, my dad was sad that I left, but like he was really happy to have a place to come and ski and be I'm going back to Whistler.
That goes back to the same thing we were talking about with like the kid at the top of the jump, right? Like, so if I would have pushed my kids to do the jumps, right? And then they found some genuine love in it, then they would maybe move somewhere to do that, right? Like your dad encouraged you to do it. And because of that, you got the bug inside you to move away, which is further than closer, which is the opposite of what you're doing when you're trying to create these wonderful things with your kids. But it's all a part of it. It's all a part of like, wow, if I can inspire my kids to get a genuine passion for something, then I win.
Yeah, because you've kind of done your job, because like I feel like
that's it.
If anything, like my dad taught me it feels special to talk to him because like exactly a year ago I was with him on his last days. So, and I keep looking over there. There's this picture. I'm like, fuck yeah, Dad. But like,
Right.
if anything, that, you know, he taught me passion, you know, and to, you know, and it's, we've all heard it, like, you know, in a cliche sense, but like, he really did teach me passion and be like, go be yourself. Go, like, he always told me, like, son, you could say, yes, boss, or I'm the boss. And I was just like, that resonated pretty hard. And sometimes I'm like, God damn it, Dad, like it'd be so much easier if I just had a job instead of like trying to chase like the next, next thing that's going to pay me. And like, no, my wife's a nurse. So she's like, she definitely wishes sometime I had something more stable, but like,
God, yeah.
But like at the same time too, like he really taught me to be passionate and like to love what I do and to seek what I want to do. And now like, yeah, with Owen, it's just, I feel so fortunate to take him on doing these adventures already. Like I was telling him like, oh yeah, I'm going to go, Daddy's going to go work for the morning, but I'm going to go pick you up and we're going to go snowboarding. Oh, we're going to go snowboarding. We going to go on the chairlift? Yeah, we're going on the chairlift. It's just like those things already. Like yeah. I went like, it's funny because I never looked at a magic chair like that before, like the little chair at the bottom of the hill. But like, I was there with my students the other day because they're filming something for their video project. And it's the first time I've been in a magic chair without Owen. And I was like, I can't wait to be back here with the little one. You know, who knew that I'd want to go back to magic chair. I was like, nah, man, I can't wait to spend that time with him again. And like, just talk about whatever else and have a little meltdown here, but then like, all right, dude, let's go back out and here's a snack. Like, forget about it. And then like, do you want to go hit this jump? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, meltdown, forgotten. Let's go hit this jump, which is like, he's not really jumping, but like,
yeah,
I just hold him and make him like exaggerate his airs.
Totally. Yeah, that's what I was saying about. Can you imagine like the equipment we learned on? Now there's like a kid's board with a handle on it. Like it just seems like. It seems now, like a fantasy world.
It's a fantasy, and like he did that when he could barely walk, and now he's on bindings, and like
yeah.
But the fact that they have these little boards with tiny bindings, and like Leon hooked me up with the Proform to get some nice little K2 boots.
Oh, sick.
And they have little lights when he walks. Like the sole has little lights at the back.
The lights now.
It's so cute, man. But he loves them. Like if he sees the boots, he's like he puts them on right away. He doesn't want to take him off. He runs around the house and he's like, "Daddy, I want to go snowboarding."
That's perfect.
Okay, cool. Let's plan on that. It's been cold lately, so like. I don't mention it because if I mention snowboarding, he's like, I want to go. But like, at least we went a little bit here in the park. But like, it's been like 2-3 weeks since we've been on the chairlift. And like, I told him we're going to go and he totally lit up. Like, it's just funny that like the things you get to pass on. I feel like as a parent, that's like the most special thing is just to be like, here's what I really like. And like, because like in the summer, like I take him like on his run bike and ride trails and pump tracks. And in my mind, I'm like, that's how I know how to have fun.
Yeah.
I'll take you out. If you don't want to, if you want to like stop and just go climb onto roots and look at whatever, like we don't have to, as long as we're outside. And if you want to get on your bike and start ripping around, like great. But like, that's at least I try to bring him to where I think these places are beautiful. Cause like where I grew up, like, yeah, we had nature, but we didn't have pump tracks. We didn't have like cool mountain bike trails or whatever else. So like now it's like
climbing walls in the park that you can, as a kid, you can climb these like holds,
these nice holes in the park.
Isn't it crazy?
Oh, it's awesome.
It's everywhere around for the kids now. There are these little things that lead to these bigger things.
Yeah. And I take him to the climbing gym already. Like I've taken him rock climbing and he's you know, I spent some time teaching him, but like his awareness is really good now. Like he's actually like, sometimes he climbs, I'm like, you actually look like a climber. This is pretty sick. And
kids are incredible climbers.
Well, that's the thing you realize, like, and I've seen it already with other kids, but like, you know, we come from the monkey. So you just get a kid like somewhere on a wall and like, they don't have fear of falling. So like, it's like
and their little, the body weight is so little that their arms are powerful.
Their arms are powerful. And like I keep telling him, it's all in your feet. You gotta look for your feet. So like when he's climbing, like if it's any sketch, I place his feet on a hold and I'm like push. So he grabs the next hold and then I get him up until like, hey, you're good, and top out. Like I take him to the boulders here and he's topped out a bunch of little boulders already.
No
and like,
way, that's so sick.
But now the sketchy part is like when he's on top of a boulder.
How do you get him
and
down?
now I'm just like, it kind of takes two people, like one to get him at the top because like he gets to the top of a boulder. He's like, look at me, Dad. I'm like, don't fall. Like you're gonna smash your head. There's granite everywhere. But it's a fun new phase, man. Because like yeah, it's been a good ride. Like when I turned 40, I was like, man, I was thinking especially about Gerhard that passed away at the time, like right around the same time. And he has a little boy, and it was so freaking heartbroken. I was so heartbroken just for that. And my friend Kyle Wokachuk, who died speed flying off the Chief 2 days before his kid was scheduled to have a C-section and being born.
Oh, wow.
Like some of those things, I'm like, man, like the fact that these things just happen, and I don't know what's going to happen with me, but as long as we're here right now, like I'm just so happy to spend these moments with my kid and with Chelsea too. Like when we're all out doing something that we love, like it's just so cool. But yeah, when I was like 40, I was, with everything that I've done so far, like I was like, man, I could die today and feel like I had a really full life already.
Hell yeah, dude.
So, but luckily I'm still here, and now I like,
Cheers to that,
cheers,
dude.
buddy. Yeah. Now I'm like, I got an even better reason to stay alive, because gotta stay up for the kid.
100%. Worldview shifts when you have a kid.
Oh yeah, it
All of a
does.
sudden, there's this person there that you want to care and protect for your whole life, right?
Yeah.
Their entire life.
And even at one point, like just to see him, like seeing what they're doing, because I was, I'm always like, I'm counting like how many years am I still going to be able to go sled shred and be able to drive my sled out? How many more years? Because I'm turning 47 in a month and a half, which is fucking weird. But like I'm like, I count how many years can I still
doesn't
sled?
get any less weird,
No,
dude.
I know. And how many years can I still do this? And like, what am I going to do when I can't do any of those things anymore? When my fingers hurt too much from arthritis and I can't play guitar the way I want to anymore. Like,
Right.
at least now I'm gonna like hopefully have good relationship with my kid, and then I'll watch him grow. Like, I feel like that's kind of the last thing that you have to that you have. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, now I quit my job as a mailman, and I'm doing this as kind of my job. And
but it's been awesome.
oh, it's awesome. I love it so much. I just don't like calling it a job because I enjoy it so much. It's not really a job, but it is the source of my income. So
But
it's a
the
job.
saying is like, if you love what you do for work, and it'll never be work.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So it feels like that, but I definitely am now, because I have all this time, in a space where there's a lot of old people, you know what I mean? Like if you go up the mountain first thing in the morning, there's like a lot of old guys there being like, oh, it's always good if you're here before the crowds or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm looking going like, fuck, I'm glad I'm doing this now, because I have a lot more control over my body than it looks like these guys are able to have.
Oh yeah.
And
like,
I'm
how
like,
long-
I'm already late to the thing, right? I wish I was doing this when I was 30 or something. I wish but no regrets. I'm
Well,
glad
in the end, like you
that I took the leap of faith and just was like, I don't want to become that retiree that's been at the same job for 30 years and just doesn't have anything else to do or talk about than work, and either not being at it. Like every moment I'm away from it is in relationship to, well, it's gonna suck on Monday,
Yeah, exactly.
Better get back out in the boat and go fishing Sunday afternoon, because fucking tomorrow's gonna
because
suck.
Monday is gonna suck.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like, I never like, and like work is work. And I look at Chelsea, who she's a labor and delivery nurse. She's working right now.
Oh, wow.
She might be delivering her baby right now.
Wow.
Like
My
and her-
wife's a doula, so she just delivered a baby last week.
No
It's
shit.
Crazy space to be in.
Yeah,
Oh my
crazy space
God.
to be in.
Yeah,
But like,
yeah.
it's beautiful at times, but there's also like a lot of crazy stressful times. So
Oh
like,
my God.
she's the one, like, sometimes when I talk about like, oh, it's so good to be self-employed, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, but there's these things that come with it. And like, so she puts me like, sometimes like, yeah, you can't just like live your life thinking like everything's so great. Like everybody be self-employed, whatever else. Like there's also like, some stresses that come with it, but like, like she still does really enjoy her job. Like it's just something like it's such a amazing service to the community. And like she
Right.
delivered a few babies with the people that are in a complex too. So she
Sick.
was there for that. She
Yeah,
was there
that's
for like some of her
so
friends'
rad.
birth. And it's like, it's freaking amazing stuff that, like they'll remember forever.
Forever.
And I feel like, yeah, like what she does is, as long as you feel fulfilled,
Yeah.
like that's always to me what it is. And like when when I compare a little bit like life from back east or where I'm from, because I grew up right next to Ottawa. So like the thing was, you finish school, you go to college to get a job at the government, and you keep that job until you retire, and you go to you go to Acapulco for like a week, or Dominican Republic for your vacation. That's life. Yes. Maybe you'll do your big ski trip in Whistler or whatever in your life, but that's it. And to me, I was just like, no, man, like there's got to be more to it. And it's nothing special. Like everybody that didn't grow up in BC, that end up here, like following the same path, that just wanted to like go have a better life doing what they wanted to. But at the same time too, like to me, I always find the difference is like, and I'm not generalizing, but to me, at least, I find like every day I wake up like excited for something, even if I'm going to go like work something I'm not super as excited about or whatever. I know that the day after, like, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go shred with my friends on Whistler. I'm going to go sledding. I'm going to go climbing. I'm going to get these good feelings of like, I sent this new boulder project that I was really looking forward to try to do. Or I had like yesterday, like super fun runs on the mountain, and just like totally fills your cup. And then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to go put my head down and do responsibility life things or whatever. But you always have that passion that's just right around the corner. Totally. And I, for my friends, I like, they hesitate like sometimes about wanting to have a kid, because like, you don't get to shred as much and whatever else and do the things that you really want to do. I'm like, yeah, but we live in a place that all that stuff is minutes away from being accessible. Yeah. So even like the first year, it kind of sucks because your baby's not sleeping right or whatever, but like, I mean,
you're getting used to being a parent.
You're getting used to being a parent.
Huge job.
Which is a huge job. Yeah. But then you still get like, your kid's going to start going to daycare, and you can start to get a little bit more time. And like, now we're like, when I go shred, like we're all a bunch of dads and moms that are just like, kids are in daycare. Psh, high five. Let's go shred some powder like we've been doing for 30 years.
Yeah. It's crazy. My friend Roger wanted to move out when I moved out. So 93, it's a long time ago. And I reconnected with him a year or two ago. He came out for a trip, and he's like, I'm finally retired. I took early retirement, and I'm, or I've got 3 years left or whatever it is. My boat's paid off. My mortgage is paid off. My cabin's paid off. I got a skate ramp in my garage. He's got all this, like, he did it a way that's like, he's like, now I'm ready to come out and shred. Mm-hmm. And I realized, I don't have a house. I don't have a boat. I don't have a cabin. I don't have a ramp at my place. I don't have any of these things. But if I had lived there, then to go to Grouse wouldn't have been a $5 gas drive.
Yeah.
And a pass that it would have been $100 for the pass, and it would have been, $500 for the flight, $500 for a hotel, and for each time I do that, it would have been $1,000.
Yeah, it would have been a big expense.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, it's no expense. I'm eating an apple in the car on the way there. I'm going to eat food at home when after I'm done.
Yeah, you go get your little shred session.
That's what the benefit. That's what I spent all my money on, essentially.
Especially living here is so freaking expensive. Like, so expensive. Like the overhead just to exist is so high.
Right.
So in the end, but that's what we pay for. Like, it's not a day trip or a plane trip to go do what we do, like on a daily basis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've known that forever. Like, sure with snowboarding and whatnot, but like going climbing at the Chief and whatnot, and hanging out with, like, there's people that come from everywhere, and like people are always like, oh, where do you live? Oh, I live here in town,
right over there.
I live right over there. And they're like, God, you're so lucky. I flew here from whatever country to come experience what you get to. I'm like, yeah, like, and now like, yeah, I'm looking at the forecast, like, okay, it's gonna get warm, but like on Friday I'm going climbing.
Sick,
because it's like,
Mikey Rentz talked about it too, about like people come in to the Whistler backcountry with an agenda. I got to get shots, right? Uh-huh. But they don't know. They haven't been here all year. They don't know where the light's good at what time and what's filled in and where it's.
Oh, they need to be taken by the hand.
They need him, right?
Yeah,
because he's got that knowledge, and having that knowledge gives you another layer of, just like things that you can actually do, right?
Well, because like that day is going to be good.
Yeah.
So it's like that day is going to be good. This is the day to go do whatever it is that I want to do at that time. Yep. I'm going to like be busy. I'm going to do whatever I need. So that day I'm free. And then we're going to go live those experiences and have the best time
perfect
ever.
time.
And then, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Like looking forward to the next. In the meantime, let's do what we got to do down here. And like, yeah, we're going to keep making it happen.
Sick life, man. We lucked out.
Oh,
We
dude,
really did luck out.
It's so crazy. Like that's always what I say. I just feel like grateful, but mostly just lucky because
Yeah.
it could have been growing up and being born in a place where, you know, you don't have these opportunities that rise, and like having like parents that like, yeah, they're sad that I moved out, but like they're still encouraging to go do what I want to do. Some parents are going to be like, no, you're not fucking doing that. Like you're going to get a job and we're not going to help you with anything. Like
Totally.
if you want to do that, like, which is great.
Or even worse, like we were talking about before the mics turned on, a parent that's like, you were a mistake. You ruined my life.
Oh yeah.
I wish
When
I
a
never
parents
had
that say
you.
that,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, those kind of parents that are really like just destroying their child from the inside.
Oh, that they've
like, holy
they make
fuck.
they make their kids feel like they're a burden on
a
them.
burden the whole
Yeah.
time. Oh, it's because of you.
Because I can't do
any
this.
of
Because of you,
shit.
I can't do that.
Right.
And that's one thing that like I'd never want to make him feel bad for existing. I'm like,
No,
no,
my
dude. Like,
God,
I'm so
no.
happy you're here. And sure, there's times that you drive me nuts because
Yeah.
right now I'm dealing with a 3-nager, which is fuck that kid's like to test buttons, man.
Oh, they know that's their whole job.
Yeah.
I remember when I realized you've got all day to fucking bug me to go to Playland.
Uh-huh.
That's the only thing on your fucking to-do list. Is to
Exactly.
bug dad. You got no other things you have to do today. I need to take care of you. Plus, I've got all this other shit I have to
Oh
do.
yeah, and being like self-employed, trying to work from home. Like when I first had my kid, I was like, "Oh god, this is gonna get tough."
Tough.
Yeah, He's like nap time that you get a little bit that you get done, and then after he's in bed, when you're really burnt from your day, but like
Just wiped out. Yeah, the number of times that I woke up at like 3 a.m. after reading the story, like just I fell asleep in the bed,
Nah,
and then you're like,
Just
oh man,
all crooked.
The
Yeah,
hell am I doing? I have to get work done before I go to bed, and
Yeah.
it's fucking 3 a.m. now.
yeah. No, it's a bit of a challenge, but
It's a good one.
it's a good one.
Yeah,
But yeah, we live in such a cool place that like it's still all accessible, and
yeah. Even the drive up here, it's it's one of the most beautiful drives in the world.
anytime I travel the world and I go somewhere else and I come home and I turn the corner around the Horseshoe Bay and then you
Yeah.
see down the Sound and you see the
Zing.
peaks, summer or winter. I'm like, this is where you drive home. Like, yeah, it's just, I turn the corner. I'm like, I'm home. This is
Yeah.
it. Like the Coast Mountains. Like this is, I'm just so happy about my choices and my opportunities that were brought to me that I made it to. I'm so glad I chose to be a photographer at the time to keep me in here. I mean,
Yeah.
I could have done another job of anything, like
Sure.
work construction and stuff like that. Kept
Yeah.
doing that. There's really nothing wrong with it, but I've just
And the reality is, there's a happy you that moved back to Gatineau and had a fulfilling job doing something else and a different family, a different life. I think you're a pretty positive person. You know what I mean? Like you're going
Try to be.
through life. Yeah, exactly. I feel what you just summed it up, how I feel as well. I try to be. But it's not worth it if we're the lucky people that got to follow our passions and we're fucking still complaining. That's not worth it.
Oh no! I mean, what's the point? Like,
there's
might
no
as well like move back, like, or go like, especially like, you know, if I hear people that live here and they complain about the price of living and
Sure.
whatever, and they don't take advantage of the area for what it is, I'm like, where the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like, might as well go anywhere else. If this is just a place that
Yeah.
you wake up and you
Yep.
do your responsibilities and you're not happy about it and about how expensive it is, like, then just. I mean, it's not that simple to pack away, especially if you have a family. But at the same time, too, like there's quite a lot of ways that you can make yourself happy and
You
go get
always
like
have options.
go
yeah.
go immerse yourself in the forest and
Quit your job and see what opportunities come up and follow a different path.
yeah.
That It's Gonna Suck Monday was really the 15 years I was at Canada Post. I really enjoyed the job. It's a really awesome outdoor job. It's very easy sometimes, but there are a lot of people there that are like, "Well, it's gonna fucking suck on Monday," or like a good day happens where you're like, "Oh, we're gonna be finished early today," and then without missing a beat, someone beside you will go, "Yeah, but tomorrow's gonna suck."
Yeah.
And you're just like, what a way to live.
Oh man, what a waste.
If you're waiting for the days that suck, like, fuck, dude, celebrate the days that rule. This is like the best fucking day.
Maybe you need to find a passion of some kind, whether it's like art, music, martial arts. I don't know what.
Yeah, before we wrap it up, tell me about the Subterraneans. What's the story behind them? When did you guys start? You guys are gigging. I saw you in Vancouver. You rip. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Subterraneans we've been playing since before COVID. Yeah, we play, it's like heavy fuzz punk, like garage, like it's kind of psych rock at times. Like, we still can't really describe our style. It's fucking loud and fast and lots of distortion. But we've been playing for a bunch of years now. We're like finishing recording our album in a couple weeks. We have a few demos that are on Spotify and Apple Music already, but like
Subterraneans.
We're not,
go listen, you guys.
Yeah, thanks. If you're if you're into that kind of stuff, it's pretty good. It's not like metal or anything like that, but it's like, it's been super fun because it's like I grew up around a lot of musicians when I was a teenager, and like, sure, I did like a lot of photography and whatever else, but like I always wanted to play shows. I wanted to have a mosh pit in front of me from the music that I play, and I started like, it started with my wife's hairdresser that her husband from Finland, and he plays bass, and he's like, oh, husbands, you guys should get together and play. And like we started playing, and like he likes like way heavier shit than I do because he's from Finland. I always say he likes like goat sacrificing metal.
Death metal, I love it. That's
and I'm
awesome.
more like I listen to a lot of stuff, but like, you know, I more like punk ish.
Yeah, like 90s snowboard video.
90s snowboard video and like old punk from the 80s. And like now I like a lot of bands like the OCs and Fuzz and One, and like a bit on a psych rock kind of style. But like I still go back to like my punk rock years. Like, you know, like my town was either like you listen to hip hop or you listen to metal. Right. And like, but then like I had a friend who forgot a Dead Kennedys tape in my mom's car. Sick. And then I turned that on. I was like what the fuck? And all of a sudden I totally like, and I was like punk rocker for years and years. Sick. Still while liking, like I'll put on like Grateful Dead on a road trip, you know, like I love everything, you know, but like except for like fucking new school rap, like whatever it's called, like mumble rap. I cannot stand it. But anyway, so we started weird stuff. Fuck that. But yeah, so we started playing music, me and Aki, and then I made a post on Facebook musicians, Squamish musicians, like, wait, we need a drummer. These are influences. If you're into it, like, get in touch. And we met Scott, who's been our drummer, and he's a singer. And sick. Yeah, so we have a drummer.
You have a drummer singer.
Drummer singer, yeah.
That.
And no, Aki, our bassist, moved to Powell River because he got kicked out of his rental and they had to move out of town because it's too expensive. We got a new bassist. He's from Sweden, so at least we kept up with that part of the world.
Scandinavia.
Yeah. And but Aki's coming back in a couple of weeks to finish the album. That is going to be like his final chapter in a sense. Yep. And then we're playing May 2nd at the Waldorf in Vancouver. We're playing Pemberton at the Pemho. Yeah, we're gonna play at the Pemho at April 19th. We're playing on Sunshine Coast a couple times. So like I'm the one who books shows. So like when I have time, I can start like to coordinate some stuff and do a little PR. I just try to get us some shows here and there. But like, yeah, it's been super fun to like, it's my other snowboarding and my like, there's like the sport thing that I like to do. And then I suck at drawing. Like I'm fucking terrible at drawing, but like I can take photos. That's like, which is kind of artistic, but like to me, like that music is more my artistic style where like, yeah, like I'll try to play like at least like 10 minutes every day if I don't have time or otherwise. Like, but when I go and play a session or play a show and like there's all this anticipation and you're on stage and like people are stoked listening to music and you got people dancing, having a good time, and you finish your set, people are like, that was freaking awesome, thank you. And just all you say is just, oh, thank you. But in the end, like it's just like, I
saw you at the Railway Club. That was super fun.
Yeah, that was cool.
A loud show, tight venue.
Yeah, I love that shit. I love like gritty. I always I see like old video, like old footage of like chaotic fucking punk shows, and I'm like, man.
Just downstairs from that, the Niagara, I saw SNFU a few times in the early 90s, and it was off the fucking chart, dude. Yeah,
those are the best shows.
So
like,
fun.
Either that or seeing like gigs. I like the Commodore or something like that. But like
Commodore gigs are the best too.
They're the best. But like
seeing big bands in a medium-sized venue, the absolute best for sure.
Oh yeah, and now to be part of like we're part of the music scene. Like, a bunch of men knows us. Like, we played with a shitload of bands from the city and Squamish, and
cool.
So it's been super fun to be able to like disconnect from snowboarding, and now like with my musician friends, and now we go make some noise, keep messing up my tinnitus, keep making my ears ring more and more.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
fuck yeah, Phil.
It's been good, man.
Thank you so much for doing the show. We've been working on this for a couple of years at least.
Yeah, our phone call about it was a couple of years ago, but
and it was
fun, I was
yeah.
busy, man. I had a little kid. I didn't have time to do anything.
It's crazy.
I was just trying to survive.
Yeah,
but now I'm stoked that we're here, and like, I gotta go pick him up before he falls asleep, because it's time to go shred with a little man. So well, thank you so much for you know, I never thought I'd be able to tell my story on a podcast.
I'm stoked that you did, dude. Yeah, of course.
Because it's been a freaking fun ride, and share with so many people. There'd be so many stories. We could be here all day, you know, but like, it's just been fun to share a little bit. And yeah, thanks for taking the scenic drive to Squamish, man.
I can love it, dude.
Yeah.
Right on, Phil. FNRad shout-outs this week to Phil Tifo, his wife, and their son, Owen. Thanks for doing the show, Phil. Thank you, Patreon supporters, and thank you to all our sponsors. Check out and demo next year's wired snowboards and fixed bindings at the Boardroom's Future of Snowboarding this weekend at Cypress Mountain. There will be tons of brands there showcasing next year's gear, so go and check it out. And be sure to come back next week for more FNRad snowboarding, brought to you by Flojoy Water and produced by FNRad Productions.